Hey everyone, hopefully I'm streaming like I'm supposed to be. There's always a delay with OBS, so I'm never sure when it's actually transmitting to you guys. Oh, now I have sound, so now I know. Let me turn that sound off. Yeah, I don't know why there's always such a delay, because I never know if it's actually showing you guys anything. Thanks everyone for joining me. I know it's really late. Well, for some of you it's late. Some of you it's not. But this was really the only time I could do this today. And I actually almost canceled at the last second. For those of you who were looking forward to my raging tonight, I actually do not feel very well. So the raging is not going to happen because I don't have the energy for it. I know it's disappointing. If you want to leave now, I don't blame you, because half the fun of it is taking away. Thanks, Linda. Actually, I was feeling a little better and yesterday and then a little bit of today, but then things just kind of took a turn for the worse. For those who don't know, and only people I'm close to know, I have chronic vertigo, and I suffered, like, I'm coming out of a really bad episode, a bad spell. So for 3 weeks, I have not been able to do much of anything. I haven't been on my computer. I haven't been reading anything. I can't, I sit there basically acting like a vegetable because I can't do anything. And even when I start feeling better, I'm afraid to do anything because I don't want to trigger it. And if you've never had vertigo before, it's like when you're drunk and then you lay in bed and everything spins. It's like that all the time, except for my head was actually tumbling, and it was horrible. And, I was having trouble not falling, I was having trouble standing up. And so it's been pretty miserable. And so that's why, for those of you that are my group, which I'm sure most of you are, that's why I have not been engaging very much. It's just been really hard on me. And so I barely even checking the Facebook group. I haven't been involved in any social media for this 3 weeks for sure. Hi, David. So anyway, so that's where I've been. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later. I know if you watched one of my last videos I did with Eric Jose, I had said that I'm going to be taking a break, and I hate to say it so abruptly, but I could sit here and go into these long explanations, but I'm going to be taking a break, and it's not just because of the vertigo, since I'm hoping I'm coming out of that. I actually have a lot of serious health issues going on right now, and I'm actually considered to be high risk of a stroke right now. And so I have to stay calm and I have to stay stress-free. And I was doing a really good job of that until today, or even just yesterday too. I have actually had to step away from the case. I try not to get emotional about it. I try, but I can't help it. Every time I think okay, I can just take it with, in stride, and it's not going to bother me, and then yesterday this decision comes out, and it's a decision I was expecting. So it's not even like it was a surprise. I was shocked that she was denying it on the merits, because I did not understand how she could make this decision on the merits without a hearing. It just made no sense to me. So it bothered me a lot. And, I actually could not sleep at all last night, and that's not good for me right now. I was up till 5:30 in the morning just obsessing over this, and then I was up by 8:00 this morning because I wanted to be able to get the document, the actual thing, because it was driving me crazy. I wanted to read what her reasoning was. I mean, I already knew it was going to be stupid, but and then I read this thing, and everybody knows that I am usually the calm one. I don't get worked up about much. Most of the stuff that people are losing their minds over, I'm always like, maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. That is how I take most everything. And hi, Angie. And in my group, I'm always the one, we have to try to be unbiased. We have to be fair. We have to look at it from each side. I'm always trying to be, give it a very genuine evaluation. And even with some of the ridiculous, things that have come out in the legal documents, I still usually keep my temper under control. And I don't know what it was, but this just rubbed me the wrong way. I was so livid. And I read this, obviously, before I posted it for anybody else to see, because I needed to digest it first. And I just was angry. And from my post, I was angry because it's nonsensical. I mean, it's just ridiculous at the lengths this judge went to deny this issue without a hearing. That is the key thing. I was never very confident that Steve was ever going to win on this issue. But if she was going to decide on the merits, there had to be a hearing. There would have to be a hearing. The state did not provide enough information about their part in this to make any type of intelligent decision about what their mental state was. Like, why did they do this? And the fact that they were arguing on procedural grounds tells you that they knew that this could be a problem. But that's not something the judge is going to look at. As you can see, because from the very end, she's very specific about you're trying to say that since they were, if the law enforcement gave them back to the hall box, clearly they must have thought they were human bones, because why would they do that? And she completely dismisses that. And it's like, well, whatever they thought, it doesn't really matter because it wasn't scientifically proven. It does matter because it's supposed to be about bad faith. And she made a determination about whether they acted in bad faith without hearing from them at all. And I'm actually jumping way ahead, but this is why I was just so crazy about it, because I can't figure out how you could do that. Now, again, I try not to make personal attacks on the judges, because I just don't think it does any good, honestly. But first off, we all know 5 months to make this decision. Now, I still believe that she was punishing Kathleen for questioning her integrity. It says 14 pages and it's 13. And that's what kind of mood I was in. Because if you saw my comment out, it's like, and I'm pissed that I had to pay for 14 pages when one of them is blank. That's the kind of mood I was in. It's 13 pages. Actually, technically, it's really only 12 because the first page is a cover sheet. I think, from what I remember, there was only one citation other than Arizona versus Youngblood and Greenwald, which, okay, judge didn't need to look those up because that was the center of all of this, and the issues at hand have been discussed a great deal. There's no way that, she might have had to look it up to get specific citations, but hell, I don't even know if she did that, to be honest. So she cited one other case, and it wasn't even a very necessary citation. So again, the first thing is what the hell took you so long? And I bring him up a lot, but those of you that heard, my interview with Michael Cicchini, and I keep going back to this because I have seen this in everything he has said is what is happening. He said that there are so many loopholes that judges can use and that they will find a way to deny it. And I have never seen such a blatant example of that as in this case, in this decision. And Kathleen had tweeted that, it's taking this long because she has to figure out how to deny this. And she's absolutely right. I thought she was going to go with procedural bar. Now, the Court of Appeals did say that they wanted her to make a decision on the merits. But once you evaluate it, if it's procedurally barred, it doesn't matter. Then there is no merit to it. So just because they said they wanted a decision on the merits, I didn't really think she was going to go that route because, again, thought that would require a hearing. And, okay, I'm going to stop right here for a second. I said I have all these health issues. There's something, if you're in my group, please stick around to the end because I'm going to go over some of that stuff of what I'm going to do going forward with the group and everything. But right now, I need to stop and explain this other issue. I have so many issues right now, you guys. It's just ridiculous. My life has been just a disaster. And please, if anybody tries to say, oh, you're trying to get pity for yourself, I've had these for a long time, and how many of you knew about it? So no, it's just that right now it's very bad. Another thing that has been greatly distressing me, and again, those of you who know me a long time will probably understand this, I'm struggling with my memory a lot. Not just getting a little bit forgetful. I mean, I am struggling. A year and a half ago, I was an walking encyclopedia of this case. I mean, not only could I tell you like where you could find something, sometimes I could even tell you the page number. I don't remember a damn thing about anything anymore. I just don't. I mean, people will send me things and they ask me, have you seen this? Do you remember this? I don't know. I don't know. And I am losing my train of thought. And again, if you watch me for a while, you know I do that naturally anyway because I get very into what I'm saying. But I can't come up with words a lot. I can't spell words anymore. I can't believe how many times I actually have to look in Google how to spell words, which, oh my gosh, like I've always been a good speller. I was the kid who never needed notes in college. Everybody hated me because I never took notes. That's the kind of memory I am used to having. And now I can't remember anything. I actually joked with a couple of people the other day about how like you could send me a message saying, oh, have you seen this? They've determined that Teresa went missing on the 31st. And I'd be like, oh, really? No, I hadn't heard that. That's where I feel like I am right now. Like that I can't remember anything. And it's concerning to me. It could be a variety of, it could be one of my health issues. It could be a variety of them. I'm on a lot of medication. It could be that but it's concerning me a lot. I have my grandmother died from Alzheimer's. I have 2 aunts with Alzheimer's. My dad has serious dementia. And even though nobody has early onset, it's bothering me. But this is one of the reasons why I've decided, God, I don't want to start getting emotional. This is one of the reasons that I've decided that I'm not going to do any more videos, at least not the foreseeable future. The last few videos I did, I honestly felt like a complete idiot because I couldn't remember things. I just couldn't remember things that I've done hour-and-a-half long videos on, and I can't remember. I can't remember anything. Today, when I read this decision, and again, it's like 12 pages. I immediately wrote down some of my thoughts, and within 15 minutes, people were asking me questions, and I'm like, I don't remember. I'll have to read it again. This is killing me right now. My plan was to reread, Kathleen's original motion and the state's response. Yeah, forget it. That was not going to happen. The problem again then is with the vertigo, the reading and the being on the computer all day and answering questions did a number on me. And that's why I don't feel very well right now. I'm actually pretty feverish. So again, I'm not looking for people to give me a bunch of sympathy, but I want to explain why I can't do this anymore because it's frankly a little bit humiliating. I feel like an idiot all the time. And my poor friends, like I'm asking him all the time, like, did we know this? Did we know that? When did that happen? I can't even remember what was in the original brief, the original motion. I can't remember what the state said. I remember bits and pieces, but not like I would normally do. I knew this stuff like the back of my hand, and I just tried to, that's why I was late. I was trying to quick read it again, and I've already forgot stuff again. So I'm doing this last video. Again, I did tell Eric Jose I might join him tomorrow night if I can work it out. My daughter is actually coming home from Cyprus. If a lot of you knew that she was going to be gone all summer, she is actually coming home tomorrow. So I don't know if I'll be available. But I told him I would try if I was around. And the reason that I kind of wanted to cancel is because I honestly was panicked. I'm such an idiot. I actually was very panicked because here I'm doing this video and I was like all mouthy on Twitter and I had all these opinions and I don't even know what they are anymore. I wish there was someone here that I could just throw the camera to, because I did not want to get emotional about this. So I'm going to try to muddle through this. I am not going to give as detailed of a breakdown as I normally would. Eric, that's funny. No, but to me, I sound stupid. I'm used to sounding fairly intelligent, and I sound stupid when you can't remember even the simplest words. You know, oh God, I feel such a dumbass now. See, now I feel stupid for a different reason. I should have known I wouldn't get through this. But the reason I wanted to say it is because here I am doing this video, and I just wanted to put it out up front that I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I cannot do what you're used to me doing, because I'm broke. I actually started telling Steve, this started a while ago. I mean, this started probably a year ago, and it's been steadily declining. And I used to tease Steve all the time. I said that your case broke my brain. You know, all the schooling I've had and everything, and I've survived all of it. And then I get involved in this case and my brain stops working. And I totally blame Steve for it. But it first was kind of like that. It was just like, okay, I'm just getting foggy. I'm getting like a little bit confused. Or now it's gotten very bad, embarrassingly bad. So I just don't know what it is. And it is kind of funny though, because I have a lot of doctor's appointments. That's the only thing I've been able to do because I have to, but I can't even drive most of the time. But I was at the doctor Monday and I have very dangerously low blood pressure, and they actually wanted to put me in the ER, but I decided to stay there for a while and see if my blood pressure would go up. It was like 86/63, and they were concerned about that. It went up to about 92, I think, over 63. So they let me leave, but I now have to monitor it at home. And it's been bad. It hasn't been good. Today, after I read this damn decision, my blood pressure shot up to normal, essentially. And I was like, okay, normal, like normally having normal blood pressure would be a good thing, but I don't think this is healthy for me right now. I need to get my blood pressure up. I don't know how to do that. I prefer it not be when I get so seriously pissed off about this case, because that's probably not the best way for it to happen. Yeah. So thanks. Like I said, again, I'm not trying to get a bunch of stuff. I just want to explain to people why I'm a scatterbrain, complete and total scatterbrain. And so many people still talk to me, and I'm really thankful for that, because honestly, like if I ask you a question, I could have asked it 5 minutes ago and I won't remember. I'm in mid-sentence, like when I'm even typing, and I forget what word I was going to use, and it takes me a while to get it, so, and now, anyway, I've described it enough, but it's bad. So, this is what I just wanted to put out there beforehand, so that, again, you didn't all sit there and roll your eyes at me, thinking I was like on drugs or something crazy that I can't remember anything. Thanks, Eric. I know I am hard on myself, but I mean, I don't even want to look. I shouldn't even look right now to see how many people have already left. Oh, okay. Oh my God. I didn't even know I had that many people. If I did, I would probably stop talking a long time ago. I had 19 people watching the last time I looked, and now there's like close to 70. I should have stopped talking like 82 embarrassing sentences ago. Anyway, so I will get to this. Like I said, I keep calling it just a dumpster fire because that's what it is. Oh gosh. Okay, I have to go to the beginning now because, again, so bear with me that I am not one that wants to sit here and read this, okay? But I can't remember things, so I have to kind of skim it over again to kind of see what I'm trying to say. I already knew that when I did this, I was going to start out by saying something like one of my first impressions. Well, I forgot what my first impression was. As I already said, that said no citations, 12 pages, it should not take any judge 5 months, especially for a denial. I mean, it's God, whatever. Okay, so what is she saying now? My first thing is an overall thing because it's pissing me off. And I know it's in here somewhere, but I couldn't find it again. When I was raging about this on Twitter a bit, but when the CD issue was going on, okay, the judge did not consider the state's response to Kathleen's supplemental motion and Kathleen's reply. And her reasoning for not considering them was that this was a limited remand and the Court of Appeals was very specific. At no time did they say that any additional briefs could be filed. They said a supplemental brief could be filed and that was it. So that's what she's going by. Okay, that is what she said. In this one, now, other than a couple minor things, the Court of Appeals instructions are exactly the same. Conduct any proceedings necessary to, rule on this, whatever. It says that Kathleen had to present her brief, supplemental brief, within 14 days. And again, the last time, what was it, 2030? I don't remember. You're going to hear me say that a lot. But that was the only difference, the time frame. Everything else was the same. The directive was the same. But now she's saying, well, they told me that I should conduct any proceedings, and so I'm going to accept all of these briefs. What about the fact that they only specified that Kathleen could file a motion? Like, what about that? Why is that changing? How do you have the exact same instructions, and yet you give complete opposite explanations of how you're handling it based on how you want to rule? I don't see any other way to look at that. I don't know how you can say, well, they were very specific, and so therefore I'm not going to consider these other, the response and the reply. Oh, this time, well, they said I can conduct any proceedings necessary, which they said the first time too. And now she's saying, so I am going to take all of this into consideration. I don't know why. I don't know why she needed to take anything into consideration, because she struck it all down based on the original motion. She didn't need the other ones to come up with her reasoning for why she denied this. Literally, just was like the one thing I want to point out, and I lost it. I get very flustered when I do this. God, where did it go? How did I lose this? Oh, okay. One of the things that struck me right away is when she says that the defendant alleges that the state violated the preservation of evidence statute. Okay, well, here it says additionally, the defendant asserts his constitutional rights were violated. Okay, that's correct. And yet somehow, because there were two separate issues. Did they violate the state statute by not preserving this evidence? In the alternative, did they violate his constitutional rights under Youngblood? These are two separate things. And yet, other than when she said that, she actually is combining them. She combines them. Like the due process violation or the civil rights violation would have a direct result on whether there's a statutory violation. No, it doesn't. They're separate things. The only thing that was problematic about the statute is that there was no punishment listed. Now, Kathleen said that if they were supposed to preserve the evidence and they didn't, that is a violation under the Constitution. So therefore, if they were supposed to preserve it under statute, then the remedy should be similar. That's the only time that she's talking about them in conjunction with each other. Oh, that's good, Deb. You finally figured out how to comment. And I need to get to where, here, because she says that the Court of Appeals was clear that this supplemental motion was restricted to reviewing whether the state violated 968-205 and how such a violation would affect the constitutional rights of the defendant. No. The statute is the statute. The Constitution is the Constitution. You don't combine them. Okay, you look to see if that one was violated, and if it wasn't, then you go to the other one. And so, and then this is great when she says that Mr. Avery is not stating a sufficiency of evidence or ineffective assistance of counsel claim relating to the inadequate testing of bone fragments. Rather, Mr. Avery's claim pertains to the constitutional violation. I hate this because she makes it sound like, well, maybe if you had filed it under those, we'd have something to discuss. No, come on. It's condescending. It really is. I mean, it's like saying, oh, well, if you would have made a better argument or a different argument, we might have been able to help you. But I'm like, no, you wouldn't have. I don't even know why you're pointing that out. Like, I don't know. It just bothered me a lot because it was just so catty. And then she says that the retesting of the bones is relevant to this constitutional claim on the matter of the exculpatory nature of the destroyed evidence. However, the retesting of the bone fragments is not a claim in its own right. Okay, now this we already dealt with because remember how she originally tried to file a motion for retesting. And they said that is a separate claim, a separate procedural mechanism from the 9-7. How many times have I said this? I don't know what it is. 97604, I think. And I've only said it 8 billion times. So it was already established that is something she could possibly do at a later date. She just couldn't do it now. And then it was because of this is how we found out that they dispose of all these bones. So she's not going to be able to do it anyway. So it doesn't matter whether it's a claim or not because it can't be a claim now. They've taken that away. Okay, and then she goes on to address the recusal issue, and I'm going to skip all that because, unfortunately, she's right about this one. I mean, Kathleen, under Wisconsin law, she actually had no grounds to file this, and I think it really pissed her off. So that's why it does bother me because I feel like she unnecessarily pissed the judge off because there was no way she was going to win on this. So I'm not even going to go back. I mean, this judge, we don't like her, we don't want her, but under the rules that are in place by our Supreme Court, for those of you who never watched those videos, the problem was that Kathleen relied on a ABA model rule. Those rules are suggestions. A lot of states adopt them as is. Our Supreme Court did not adopt that specific one that she cited. So it was like, that's not even our law. So why are you citing that? And she cited cases that are not even in the state and whatever. So it was kind of weird, but that's why it's like, we don't have that actual rule. So, and then this is where she says that the order from the Court of Appeals wanted to send this back to the circuit court so that it's relatively fresh and not procedurally barred. So, I mean, take it to mean like that she was already accepting it wasn't going to be procedurally barred, which again, I did not see coming because that's been her favorite excuse for everything. And just because they were saying that they didn't want that to be an issue, that didn't mean that it wasn't already an issue. So that surprised me a little bit. And there are other things that surprised me, as I'll probably mention more. But and here's where she says, both parties have filed briefs in this matter and all arguments will be considered. Again, how do you justify that when you literally said in your last decision that there was no allowance for that by the Court of Appeals? And then we move on to the statute. And I mean, right away, the first thing is, again, I said this so many times, so this was not a shock. They were going to use the fact that it was never actually identified as Teresa's remains, because that is in the statute. But the one thing that then needed to be weighed was, could this evidence reasonably be used to incriminate or exculpate any person for the offense? And then she says right away, the first clause doesn't apply. And then she'll say, but the issue doesn't end here. She said that like 3 times or something like that. It's weird. But then this is when she turns to the constitutional issue. She turns to Youngblood and Greenwald right away. They, again, separate issue. Why are you using that to say whether it was reason? Okay, I'm sorry. Greenwald and Youngblood. The key to those is to decide if they are either apparently exculpatory or potentially exculpatory. That's it. Those are the 2 words, and God knows she used them a lot, at least apparently. Good God, did she just go on about that for way too long. But the statute said, could this information reasonably be used to incriminate someone or exculpate somebody? Again, it's not the same standard. It's not saying, it sounds very similar to could it potentially be used, but it's honestly not. It's saying, is it reasonable? Was it reasonable to get rid of these things? And she never ruled on, well, I think she said something about it, but it was still under the context of how it wasn't a violation under Youngblood, which I'm just going to say it again for those in the back. The constitutional violation and the statutory violation are 2 different things. And she just said, we're going to get back to that later, and, or that, that the issue doesn't end here, but then you're going to completely ignore that. And like I said, again, I think she did bring up the reasonableness later, but really she focused on the constitutional violation. While I'm thinking about it, and I know it comes into this later, this does not end the inquiry into the matter. Kind of did. So the second clause of the statute may apply in a case before the court. And this is when she says that, okay, wait, here, let me read this again, because again, I'm forgetting. So sorry about that. The second clause of the statute may apply in the case before the court. The defense argues that the evidentiary material returned to the Halbach family might reasonably have been used to exculpate Mr. Avery or establish that biological evidence was planted on his property to incriminate the defendant in this matter. We know the rest of what Kathleen said. And then they say that the defense argues that the state further violated the statute by not contacting Steve about this or his attorneys. Okay, and I knew that this was going to be an issue either, because if Steve wasn't going to win on the reasonableness of its exculpatory incriminatory value, the whole written thing was never going to be a matter, because I didn't think he was ever going to get past that. And she even says there's no dispute that the evidence in question was released back to the Halbach family. Okay, good thing they can agree on something. And then she says again, however, the inquiry into the matter is not terminated with this issue. She keeps saying it's not terminated, but then she keeps changing directions. She talked in circles so much. Hi, 7 Pop. I had a little issue earlier, so sorry, but lost where I was again. Oh yeah, okay, I know what I was getting confused on. So she said again that it wasn't terminated with this issue. In order for the statute to apply, the evidence in question must reasonably be used to incriminate or exculpate a defendant. Yeah, we got it. We've said this, like we've said it, but you haven't given anything else. You just keep saying that it doesn't end there. And then she turns to Greenwald. And this is where my problem is. I forgot deep breaths. I actually am supposed to be doing that. My physical therapist says I need to do deep breathing regularly because of the vertigo. So yeah, and she immediately then turns to State versus Greenwald. And in Greenwald, again, you're talking about what's apparently exculpatory. What is reasonable and what is apparent are two totally different things. And yet she spends the majority of this decision talking about how it didn't have apparent, I can't even say the word right now. When Casey practically conceded that issue already. She was kind of like, yeah, we get that it's probably not apparent, but it's potentially. That's where the focus was. And yet she spends all this time on how it's not apparently exculpatory. There, got it now. And again, neither one of this has anything to do with whether it was reasonable to think that those bones could be used to possibly incriminate somebody else. That is a different component. There's nothing about incrimination in the Greenwald and Youngblood claims or cases. That is a totally different thing. And yet, again, we're moving on to whether it's apparently exculpatory. And then the bad faith argument. If it was potentially exculpatory, was there bad faith? And they did agree, hey, score for the defense. Well, yes, this does apply to post-conviction evidence, just like in Parker. So, duh. It's actually literally spelled out in Parker, but she feels the need to be like, oh, you were right about this. Yeah, we know. I just can't. I mean, she defines things by not defining them. In order to establish that the evidence in question was apparently exculpatory, a defendant must demonstrate that the evidence possessed exculpatory value that was apparent. Wow. Thanks for that awesome explanation. I just get it. Sometimes I'm just at a loss. I don't know. It's like, were you just trying to fill up the word count to make it look like it was a better decision or a more well thought out decision? And this is where she cites the one case. And it basically just says it is not enough to simply allege that destroyed evidence had the possibility of being exculpatory. Evidence does not have apparent exculpatory value if analysis of the evidence would have provided an avenue of investigation that might have led in any number of directions. Okay, that's in Youngblood. So again, let's see. In order to establish that the evidence in question was apparently exculpatory, a defendant must. Oh, what I just said. That's what she cited. That was when she said that in order to determine if it's exculpatory, it has to be apparent, and if it is, and it's apparent that it's whatever she said. That was what she cited. So that was her big outside citation in this decision. Look, I haven't lost my sarcasm. Okay. I can't remember anything, but I haven't lost my sarcasm. Okay, so this is where they get into the whole thing about how human remains were returned to the Halbach family, and if tested under currently available DNA testing, especially the rapid DNA testing, it could be conclusive in identifying the remains as belonging to the victim. However, it must be noted that the defendant begins his argument with the conclusion that the evidence turned over to the Halbach family were in fact human remains. And maybe it's because I have so much brain fog. Is this just me, or is this just not making a lot of sense? Again, it's circular reasoning. It's double talk. It's not actually making an argument. I actually am going to read that again because I am still confused about it. I read this part so many times, and I'm still like, what is she saying? Okay, the argument was that they turned over human remains and that if they were tested, They could be conclusive in identifying the remains as belonging to the victim. However, it must be noted that the defendant begins his argument with the conclusion that the evidence turned over to the Hallback family were in fact human remains. Where is she going with that? I don't even understand the point she's trying to make. Is she saying that they already have said that they believe they're humans, so there needs to be no testing to prove it was actually treated? I don't even know what she's trying to say. And again, I understand that usually I can decipher these things pretty well, and I am at a huge disadvantage right now. I'm dealing with a whole lot of brain fog and a whole lot of memory issues, so I get lost just in the whole sentence. And again, I honestly couldn't figure out if it was just me. Like, is it because of this fogginess that I have that I can't make sense out of what she's saying? Because again, usually not a problem for me, but yet I was just lost. Yeah, she's trying to remove any value. She's doing a lot of things, and none of them make sense. Because she's saying it must be noted that the defendants began his argument with the conclusion that what was turned over to the family was human remains. So what does that have to do with the fact that if they were tested, they could have been conclusively determined to be Teresa's? That's where I'm getting lost. What does one have to do with the other? There's one thing to say there were human remains, and this wasn't a conclusion. This wasn't a conclusion they just came to. This was flat out written in their documentation that these were human bones that were handed over. Okay, so this wasn't just like, oh, you came to this, saying that you came to a conclusion over something that is actually factually staring you in the face in black and white. Yeah, they said that they gave only human bones. Well, how dare Kathleen make the conclusion then that they were actually human bones? That must be really unreasonable. I mean, they put in 2 places that human bones were turned over, and yet, they're saying like, well, you made this conclusion. I don't know, because it made sense, because it was literally written right there that that's what they did. Don't even get me started, because this goes like so further than that. And then they say they point to several portions of the record where the evidence that was collected from the quarry site was listed in police documents as reports as human remains. This gets so convoluted, and I'm hoping everybody has already read this, so you don't need me to try to untangle this, because obviously I'm struggling with that right now. And she acknowledges that Hawkins wrote this, that he removed evidence with property tags that were listed as having contained human bones. And they determined which of the evidence samples contained human bones by using a report authored by Eisenberg. Now, this is where she changes gears. And, first, at the end of this paragraph, the record in this case contains more than one document created by Dr. Eisenberg, and the report written by Deputy Hawkins doesn't identify the specific document used by the parties on that date. You know how you find that out? You hold a hearing. It says he didn't identify what document was used, so I'm going to make the assumption that this is the document they use. You don't do that. You do not decide what the facts are. You don't provide facts. The judge is a trier of fact. She is supposed to hear facts from testimony and evidence and then make a decision based on that. She is in no way supposed to actually provide those facts. Okay, yeah, sorry, Travis, I was trying to read what you said. That was, and you could tell even now, even though I don't feel well, I'm like, you could see that I'm getting angry again, because that was the first one where I was like, really like, well, that's the whole point of a freaking hearing. If you don't know what was meant, what Deputy Hawkins' intentions were, or what made him write that these were human bones, you freaking ask him. You put him on the stand and you question him about it. You don't just unilaterally decide that, well, since he didn't specify, I'm going to say that this was the report he used. And I'd like to say that that was the only time she did that, but she did it over and over and over again. And then she decides that even though she's making a point of saying that, I mean, isn't she saying that that was a document he used, but then later she says that he decided on his own to call them human? Because what she was saying was that even though she put that in her original report, well, the story she gave at trial was different. She was more specific as to how she couldn't say these things were human. And this is what I put in my original rant about this. I said, when you have pre-trial reports, you have testimony during a trial, and then you have post-conviction reports that are giving inconsistent information. There are discrepancies between this information. That is, again, the exact reason why you have a hearing, to find out why is there a discrepancy? Why do you have these reports and that somehow she testified the things that are completely contradictory to her reports? Yeah, you can blame it on the defense, I guess, for why they didn't push on that more. But then after the fact, when they are still relying on those reports, you can't say, oh, well, they were just wrong for doing that. They should have done that. He can't transform them into being what he wants them to be. I don't remember much, but I remember her saying that, or that was the gist of it. Well, Deputy Huggins just can't transform them into what he wants to be. It wasn't what he wanted to be. It was what he was told they were. She acts like this. They came up with the fact that they handed over human bones out of thin air. First, she says that it was because of this report, and then she says that, well, he was just mistaken. And then she says that he just transformed it into what he wanted it to be. Again, like, how many different directions are you going to go in this line of thinking? Because you're going a lot of different directions and none of them are lining up with each other. Do you think she wrote this bad to force the COA to demand a hearing so politically it doesn't come from her? It wouldn't even matter. She's not up for re-election for 4 years and she ran unopposed before. I don't think she gives a crap. I think she thinks that she doesn't have to, she doesn't have to worry about anything right now. So she'll answer however she wants. No, I have often wondered sometimes if the state was purposely trying to make bad decisions so that it would go in Steve's favor. Because sometimes it's like, it doesn't make any sense. Obviously, that's pretty ridiculous, but I actually entertained that thought for a while because for a while there, they were really making some terrible arguments and they kept winning, but it wasn't because their arguments were so great. It was just because of a variety of different reasons, and the procedural bar was a big one. So then they go through the whole testimony and the blank page that I paid for. That page cost me $1.25, just so you know. They stole my money. Okay, so then it's just going back and forth about she confirmed that there were human bones, possibly human. And no point does it ever get established that there were absolutely without a doubt, no human bones there. And that's another reason why this is what I have a problem with. Is like, just because she was saying that, she couldn't say for sure. When it's inconclusive, that is not an automatic they were not human. And some were human. But again, for some reason, she's dismissing it. She's dismissing this possibility of there being human because she wants to keep going back to the fact that, well, there was no proof that they were human. There was nothing there. The FBI, how many times did she bring up the FBI testing? The FBI kept testing and there was nothing there or whatever. And this is why Kathleen was pointing out that this whole, the judge completely ignored the whole testing statute. Kathleen brought that up because very logically, she said, why do we have this statute? Why is this statute here if the intention isn't that evidence is supposed to be preserved because of advances in science that could render something that was once, not able to be figured out to now possibly giving you those answers? And she completely ignored that. She's completely ignored that because, again, she's not going to want to get into anything that, I don't know, is logical, I guess. He said the level of intentional ignorance and sheer Kafkaesque madness, for lack of a better word, AS holds up here is so high that it is mind-boggling. Yeah, I mean, I tried to put it in simpler terms, but I mean, yeah, I said she talks in circles. It's double talk. It's nonsensical. She's not actually ruling on anything. And then she goes back about the back and forth about whether it was human, wasn't human, wasn't human. I mean, like, okay, and then this is a part that again bothered me. If I can get to it, I probably skipped it now or missed it. And then again about the evidence in the quarry. The doctor confirmed burned bone fragments could be found in all 3 sites where evidentiary material was found. However, she could not confirm with any degree of scientific certainty that any of the bones from the quarry were human in origin. It kind of goes along with the fact that we've said, just with regards to law enforcement, even if they were potentially human, possibly human, why don't you care? Even if it's not Teresa, it's somebody. Why are you acting so cavalier about these bones that are at least possibly human? Why do you, do they care that little? And the only, again, logical explanation you can come up with is that they believe they were Teresa's. And that's why they don't care, because they don't want it to be tested. There's no law enforcement person that should sit there and say, this is an identified human bone and I'm not going to worry about that. What kind of cops are you? Right. And well, we'll get to that in a second, about that whole thing too, because that's ludicrous as well. I can't remember exactly where this was, but she does mention, oh God, here's the FBI again. I'm so sick of seeing the words FBI, and I only read this a little bit. Under those circumstances, it cannot be said that the materials released from evidence would have been apparently exculpatory to anyone. How many pages later, and why is she still talking about that? Again, Kathleen pretty much conceded that it wasn't apparently exculpatory. The whole argument was it potentially exculpatory. And then she goes on this again. There was no scientific evidence or record at the time that the material was released to support that human biological material was being released or that the material was known to be remains of the victim. And this is what I was just saying. But you know they could have been human. Why? There's no scientific evidence other than the fact that they could be human. And you're getting rid of them. So now they can't be tested. So again, this is just going around in circles. Yeah, there's no scientific evidence or record to support that human biological material was being released, other than her reports saying they were human. And I should not stop midway. Yeah, or that the remains were known to be the remains of the victim. She also, again, from what I remember, if this isn't here somewhere, I apologize, but from what I remember, she also really does not consider how important this issue was to the defense. She brought it up as far as saying, well, Kathleen, the defense is saying that, that these bones, if they were human, that would suggest that somebody else did this crime, blah, blah, blah. She mentioned that in the beginning, but nowhere like really in this, I mean, she might have casually mentioned it, but nothing that really stood out to me. Yeah, I'm totally lost on that. So for those of you who are coming in late, like I'm having issues, so sorry. Yeah, I just don't understand that everything with her is all of a sudden there's no scientific evidence or record. Well, just because the scientific testing then didn't show it doesn't mean that it should have just been dismissed. You are talking about even if they are possible human bones. Why are you just giving them away? And again, if they didn't know there's no evidence it was a victim, why are they giving them to the family? Again, this is something that needed to be investigated in a hearing. I want to know what the Hallbachs were told. Were they told by law enforcement that those were Teresa's bones? If they were, then that's proof of what they thought, not just the judge's assumption on what they thought, or saying that their thinking was unfounded because it wasn't scientifically sound. I don't care about how scientifically sound it is. I want to know what they told the Hallbachs. Did you say these might be bird bones? These might be bones that belong to animals? Did they might be some other human being's bones? Or did they say they were Teresa's? What did they say? That goes a long way to determine their frame of mind and what they believed when they gave them away. But instead, the judge just decided their frame of mind doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what they thought because it wasn't scientifically proven. Then why do we have a statute that acknowledges the fact that science sometimes is a little behind and you need to wait till it catches up to what you need it to do? Why do we have it if you could dismiss all evidence by saying that science didn't prove it? Then why are we doing DNA samples on rape kits from 20 years ago? Because according to her, you might as well just throw it away because science didn't prove that who it belonged to. It's the whole reason we have these testing statutes. It is the same thing. It's the same thing. Take every type of evidence of a crime where you have an unidentified suspect and throw it away. Because according to her, if science didn't prove it at the time, it's of no value. I mean, am I thinking wrong, or did you guys get that impression too? Like that's what she's trying to say. I'm curious because again, I am not confident in my brain right now at all with all the problems I'm having. So sometimes I think I could be making things up in my head. I could be making a bigger deal than it should be. I'm misunderstanding. Does that make sense? That's essentially the argument she's making. Anything that was not scientifically proven at the time of the trial or at the time these bones were given away means it has no value and it had no potential value. That is the biggest part of this. She is saying it had no potential value. And yet she's saying, well, they could have been human. They could have not been human, but it doesn't matter whether they thought what they thought. It's what science could have proved. So do these bones have value or not? Because I can't figure out what she thinks about it. I mean, she acts like they have no evidentiary value whatsoever, but then she says well, they potentially could have, but we can't prove that this is what they thought. Well, again, how could you maybe get that proof? By asking them. Put them on the stand and explain themselves. This is why I had such an issue. I thought for sure yesterday when she said that she made a decision on the merits, I said she must not have reached the bad faith argument because there is no way you can make a decision on whether they acted in bad faith without hearing from them. They have to explain their actions. Bottom line, period. Now, when there is a analysis a multi-part analysis that needs to be done to satisfy a claim, like in Youngblood, it has to be potentially exculpatory and then they act in bad faith. It's two parts. Just like for ineffective assistance of counsel, it's like their level of care had to be deficient and it had to prejudice their jury. When you satisfy the first one, you don't acknowledge the second one. If you don't have to, because you don't have to. Sometimes they will, just for sport. But this was not a situation where she should have said, well, and there was no bad faith. She should not have reached on a decision. And that's just terminology. I say they didn't reach on this issue. That means that the first part wasn't satisfied, so therefore it doesn't matter what they thought on the second issue. So honestly, I don't understand why she even gave an opinion on that, because that opinion on bad faith is completely unfounded. It is not based on any sort of facts whatsoever. This is it. To establish bad faith, the defendant must show that law enforcement was aware of the potentially exculpatory value of the evidence. No, that's actually not it. It's not. It doesn't say that. It just says, was the evidence potentially exculpatory? It says nothing about what, were they aware that it was potentially exculpatory? It's just, is it or isn't it? You can make that decision independent of what they thought. Okay. The question was, did they act in bad faith by getting rid of it? They fail. It says it must show that they were aware of the potentially exculpatory value, and that they failed to preserve and act with either official animus or a conscious attempt to suppress evidence. Now, I think I actually said this to 7-Hop earlier. There are not a lot of cases, on young blood, especially in Wisconsin. The ones that there's only a handful of them, even if even that many. None have won. They have never decided that there was bad faith on the part of law enforcement. But they always held a hearing. They always heard from the person responsible for disposing of the evidence. Always. And this is, again, what I said in my tweet yesterday. I said that you need to know the how, what, where, why, when of an event that happened before you can decide whether they acted with bad faith or not. And she decided that they weren't aware that it was potentially exculpatory. Again, that's not her decision to make. She has to hear from them and hear what they said and not essentially give them an out, for them. She just basically made their excuses for them. Well, I don't know if these idiots will get on the stand and say that these things, so I'm just going to say it for them. That is what it seems like she's doing. She's saying I don't trust these people to get on the stand and say the right thing, so I'm just going to put words in their mouth. That's what I'm going to do. And that's exactly what she did. And again, with bad faith, how can you decide somebody else's intentions without hearing a word from them? I mean, yeah, I do it all the time because I'll be like, why did this person do that? Why did that? And you go speculating, but that is not what a judge does. And it just drives me crazy. I said that there are so many assumptions being made. There are so many conclusions being drawn. There is so much circular, as I said, thinking and reasoning. And then all of a sudden it was and because of all this, the court finds the defendant has failed to meet his burden to establish either the statute or his rights, which again, now they're separating. But throughout the whole beginning of the thing, they just included that the statute was only violated if Youngblood and Greenwald said they were violated, which is, again, not a thing. What I was going to say is I know in here somewhere that they mentioned that she mentions a little detail about how, you also had the evidence of Eisenberg saying that, that there's no proof that the bones were burned elsewhere and that they were then brought on the property. She forgot about the other forensic anthropologist that testified the exact opposite way. He said that in his experience, the bones appeared to have been burned elsewhere and then put on the property. But she ignored that. She only acknowledged Eisenberg's opinion on that. So again, do you know what you do in a situation like that? You are not a jury. You are not a jury. You do not decide which witness is more reliable. Hell, she didn't even mention one of them. That is, again, not what a judge does. If they did, we wouldn't have juries. So again, what do you do? Well, here's an idea. You have a hearing, talk to both of those individuals, and then bring in better experts to give you a conclusive answer, because these two people can't give you a straight answer. But why was Eisenberg's belief on this issue given so much more weight than given all the weight compared to what Fairgrave said? And she makes a point of saying that in this theory. They say, well, there's the expert said that there's no evidence that it was moved. There was more than one expert, and he said very differently. And I think this one I said today, again, I think it was a 7-pop. I said that she cherry-picked this, this issue to death. I mean, she just picked out certain things and then ran with it. She didn't even acknowledge most of, from what I remember, was in the original motion, supplemental motion. I don't think she acknowledged most of it. And I know I missed things as I was skimming that I thought of at the time. And I know there's more conclusions I had to draw about it, but again, I'm forgetting those. So yeah, it took her months. So yeah, those are the key points here. This is the takeaways from this. It took her 5 months to write a decision that was essentially 12 pages long, had 0 citations, nothing she had to look up. And really was a bunch of just silly wordplay. And then the number one thing is that she drew conclusion after conclusion after conclusion. And this, unfortunately, I've seen this recently. One of the things, and again, I know a lot of you follow Adnan Syed's case, but the highest court in Maryland, because this is something that could come up in Steve's case, and I actually expected that maybe it would come up in the same context as his case, but instead it came up in this context. They decided, their highest court, it's their court of appeals, but it's the Supreme Court in our terms. They decided that the alibi witness that had come forward to say that she was with Adnan at the exact time that the state said that he murdered Heyman Lee, that it was not enough to say that there could have been a different verdict. Ludicrous. Okay. But that isn't the only problem. I mean, that's just a ridiculous thing to say. But the reason they said that is because they said, well, the state could have just changed the timeline. You can't do that. You go by the timeline that was presented in court. And it was even worse because that exact issue came up during the hearing. Because the attorney general tried to play that and said, well, we'll just change the time. And they were like, no, nothing that you have said fits if you change this to any other call. If you start with, you always said that this call was for this. This was the, I've killed her, come and get me call. And they said, well, we'll just change it to later. And that's when he was with this alibi witness. And they said, well, we'll just change it to, he made the come and get me call, an hour later. No, because then nothing else fits. And yet that's what this panel of judges did. They changed the state's narrative for them to deny relief. It was the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It just, again, made me livid. And this is the exact same thing. She is making the state's case for them. Yeah, that's what's so ridiculous. And I thought this was going to come up because some of the things that have been said was like, well, so what if the bones weren't found on the property? That doesn't mean he didn't kill her. That doesn't mean this, that, blah, blah, blah. And the point is that Steve was convicted, Adnan was convicted based on evidence that was given to a jury. And that jury made their decision based on the evidence presented to them. You can't go back and retroactively change it. Because if you did that, the jury might have given a different verdict. And so even though, I thought that it was going to come into play, and I was very worried when I saw Adnan's ruling because I was like, crap, this is what they're going to do to Steve. They're going to all of a sudden say, even though Kratz insisted, his entire case is based on the fact that Teresa did not leave that property. It was such a huge part of his narrative. And yet they could actually allow him, or a judge even, to say, well, just because she might have left the property doesn't mean he's not guilty. It's like, you can't do that. It's like, it's cheating. It's cheating. It's going back and changing the facts to suit what you want the decision to be. And so I thought it was going to be in that context. I never imagined it would be in this context at all. I never thought I would, as much as I think this judge is just a moron, I never thought I would see such blatant conclusions being drawn, like avoid doing whatever she could to avoid having a hearing and actually making the state defend themselves. Yeah, I know people have been talking about the potential Brady violation. Here's what I say about that. Could it be? Yeah. They have shot down every Brady violation she has filed. And in my mind, this appeal needs to keep moving forward. Because if she wanted to present something new, we'd go through this all again. And it'd be back with Judge Sutkiewicz again, or Sutkiewicz, whatever her freaking name is. I don't care. And unless this is there is no such thing as slam dunk, but it would have to be the most egregious of Brady violations to even think about postponing this appeal again. And I'm not positive. This is one thing I'm not completely positive on, but the case is already concluded in the circuit court. It's in appeal right now. I don't believe that she would be procedurally barred from presenting this in the future because the case is essentially already concluded in the circuit court. Now, there is the issue where they could always say, well, you stopped the proceedings 2 other times to present new evidence, and now you're thinking you couldn't have done it. So that would be a really great issue there, whether they would rule that he was procedurally barred on those issues. But, I just think that unless you are absolutely like, this is going to be the thing, and honestly, that's what she thought with this disposal of bones issue. And she thought at least it was going to get her a hearing. And if she can't on this, is it worth putting Steve's life on hold for another 6 months just to end up in the same place? I figure if the Court of Appeals can't grant a hearing on the 75 claims she's made, it's a lost cause. It's just, then forget it. One more claim isn't going to change anything. That's just how I feel. And maybe it's kind of pessimistic, negative, but I mean, I think it's realistic at this point. She has given the Court of Appeals a substantial amount of claims to evaluate. And if the Court of Appeals ends up saying, nope, we see not even any potential violations and nothing that warrants a hearing, you know what? Steve's going to lose no matter what. Steve's never going to win. I know somebody in my group had said that they're beginning to think he's never going to stay in prison, or he's never going to get out of prison. And I usually try to be like, don't say that. You have to be hopeful. And I am hopeful, but that is a realistic possibility, especially with the way things are going. And I hate to even think about it, but I can't imagine how Steve feels, because I mean, he has to be thinking this too, even though Steve tries very hard to stay positive. But he has to be thinking the same thing too. Like, what more can I do? What more corruption, just unethical behavior, questionable behavior? I mean, what more would need to be shown to show that this decision is not, at the very least, it's not a sound verdict. It's not a slam dunk. That jury never should have convicted him, and I don't think they should have convicted him on what they saw back at the time. So I certainly don't think he should be in prison after everything we've seen now. I know I said corruption. Well, I've always thought there was corruption with the police. I mean, I always thought they planted evidence. So I always thought there was corruption. But I do think there's sometimes a fine line between incompetence and corruption. And I think they are also very incompetent. And probably their incompetence is what led to corruption. Like, they couldn't actually investigate a crime properly, so they just started cheating. So I feel confident in saying that I believe that they were corrupt just because of the planting of the evidence. Anything else, I probably wouldn't say it because I don't know for sure. I don't have enough evidence of it. I have a lot of evidence of incompetence, but I mean, the planting of the evidence, if Steve didn't kill her, that evidence had to be planted. It's one or the other. Either Steve's guilty or that evidence was planted. It can't be, any other way. And I don't think Steve killed her, so therefore they planted evidence. In that way, then that's corruption. So I haven't actually kept up with much of the chat because I would lose my train of thought way too many times. Okay, Thor, will the Court of Appeals rule, or could they kick it back down and have Judge A.S. try again, but order a hearing this time? No. No, I mean, if they will decide whether there should be a hearing. And when that happens, Kathleen will get a new judge. They may just give her a new judge, or she may have to request it. But either way, that if we can get through the Court of Appeals and get an actual decision from the Court of Appeals, a final decision on all these issues, they won't send her back to the same judge. It's fundamentally unfair. And when you have a judge that says, none of these issues, I don't believe there's any merit, not even enough to warrant a hearing, and then the court says, wait a minute, there's enough to warrant a hearing, you have to acknowledge that there could be some like bias there, that this person already has a bias against him. So in general, they don't put, when a defendant has lost already in front of a judge, and then they win, that judge's ruling is overturned, they don't put him back in front of that judge. Even in Wisconsin, they wouldn't do that. And even the judge even said herself, when Kathleen first tried to substitute her, she said, hey, once they actually make a decision, then you can substitute me. So, and that's why, I don't want to say it, because obviously if there's really good evidence that comes up, I want it all to come into play. I don't want anything to be left out, but I want this to move forward. It's so hard to be hopeful when realistically the Court of Appeals could look at this completely differently. We have no reason to think they wouldn't. They have made very sound decisions up to this point. The testing thing that they denied was the correct decision. The remands were the correct decision. So we have not seen any evidence from the Court of Appeals that they're not playing fair. I mean, they have done everything fairly so far. So that's the biggest thing giving me hope, was that, night, Angie, is that so far they've been fair. And that's more than I think Steve's gotten anywhere. So they could look at all this, and they could think this thing should be overturned on 17 different issues. We don't know. Now, if they come back and say there's no issue or none of these, there shouldn't be a hearing, then yeah, I won't probably be around at that point. So, again, for those who just turning in, and I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever be doing another video, but for now, this is my last one. Except for what I said, if I was available tomorrow, I'd sit with Eric Jose, but otherwise, this is it. My grand farewell. And I don't want to never say never, because if I'm feeling okay, I might want to do something. I don't know. When Kathleen files her brief, there's a good chance I will do it. But again, we're talking probably 2 months down the road, and maybe I'll feel a lot better. Maybe my my thyroid will have improved, in that I won't be at a risk for a stroke. And I will say this about that. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time, 18 months, for taking medication, doing everything I can to get my thyroid levels under control. And this is why I said I am in a high risk category for a stroke. The one thing that has been consistent over the last year that the doctors told me is to decrease my stress. And with this case, it's never decreased. So when I took the last 3 weeks, even really a month, since a rally, I've been really pretty much just been low key. It's the first time I did it. I had a blood test where it actually improved. It was minute. It is the smallest tiny improvement. I have so far to go, but it's the first time there was improvement in over a year. And even the tiniest improvement decreases my risk of stroke. So that's why I have to, having a little bit of a break is nice. Sometimes you just get burnt out, and it's nice, but I have to actually completely step away. Now, if there's you guys can think of any questions you want, but I had said, if anybody's in my group, to stick around. I don't know what I'm going to do about the group. It's my baby. I can't just take it down. I mean, I think there's still a lot of good information there. I think that people can still get a lot out of the things that I have posted. I still have Wendy there, and Wendy is so busy, but we still have Travis there too. So what I'm going to say for now is that, and I'm not going to act like I'm never going to be on social media again. Come on. It's just that what I'm going to say right now is that for now, if you submit a post, and again, the posts have to be legal related. I've been getting a lot of posts lately about general stuff. And I've just been declining them. If it is not a strict legal question, I'm not letting it in, because I don't have time to even deal with those, let alone all this other stuff that people want to post. So all I'm going to say is that if you want to submit something, I can't tell you when it'll get approved or answered. It might be a week before I get to it. If Travis is around and he can answer it, he can approve it and answer it. So you're just gonna have to be patient. That's why I want to make sure I do this video to cover this topic pretty significantly, so that there really shouldn't be any more questions. If there are questions, it's going to be on things I've already covered. And anybody in the group is welcome to say, Tracy said this, or I said that. Try to be accurate if you do that, though. That's the biggest thing. Again, now so the next steps here are that in 20 days, the record needs to be returned within 20 days, but they'll probably take like 18 to 20. It needs to be returned to the Court of Appeals, which then gives the Court of Appeals full jurisdiction again. The record being transferred to the circuit court gave them a limited jurisdiction. So now it'll be fully in the Court of Appeals again. Once that happens, then Kathleen has 40 days to file her appellant brief. Now, I mentioned this on Twitter because somebody did ask me, somebody said, the Court of Appeals said that there should be 10 days for anybody that needs a transcript. And I said, well, there is no transcript. Nothing happened. There was no hearing. So there's nothing to get a transcript of. And then somebody else said, FYI, she ordered a transcript last time. And then I was like, actually, no, she didn't. She filed a statement on transcript because in that remand, they actually asked her to do it, even if she wasn't ordering a transcript. And that's what she submitted. She submitted a statement on transcript saying, I don't need a transcript. And the record was still due in 20 days. I don't know if anybody followed any of that because I'm talking fast, but so they're just things that have come up. And so I just want to say that don't worry about that 10 days. It doesn't figure in. And even this time, instead of saying that Kathleen should file a statement on transcript, even if she doesn't need one, this time they said the ordering party should file a statement on transcript. If nobody needs to order a transcript, which there are none, then nobody should bother filing it. I mean, it doesn't hurt if they do, but I mean, it's not required. So they shouldn't have to do it. So then Kathleen files her appellant brief. Hopefully it will be on time. If Kathleen asks for another extension, it's not because she needs more time to write it. Oh my God, she's written this thing so many times. She's had this thing pretty much ready to go many times. And then these other issues come up. And so essentially every time when it goes back to the Court of Appeals, she just really needs to add whatever she wants to add from this denial. If she delays again, it's always been for the same reason. I mean, I think there was one time that she actually did need more time, but pretty much all the delays have been for the same reason, because she's got something that she's waiting for or investigating or working on, and she doesn't want to file unless she's sure whether this is going to come to anything or not. And sometimes it has, sometimes it hasn't. So I mean, that's the only reason why I could see her delaying again, unless she thinks it's Brady violation. But I honestly don't think. I have no confidence in it to slow things down for Steve again. Yeah, she will wait the 40 days. Yeah, no lawyer files early. And people keep asking me that. Like, say, she's going to file the day after the record. No, she won't. You tell me anytime when Kathleen has filed early. And it's not just her. No lawyers do. And usually the reason for that is exactly what I said. In case something comes up. You don't want to file, and then all of a sudden, like a ruling comes down that would have helped your argument. You can always file a supplemental citation if that happens. But one of the things, remember what the Court of Appeals said, they would allow it to be remanded because no briefs had been filed yet. If new information falls in Kathleen's lap that she thinks is big and she's already filed the briefs, she's going to be out of luck. So she is not going to file that thing until she has to, until it's due. And it's the same thing like with the other side too. They do the same thing. Everybody does the same thing. Is that they wait just in case. You never know when something's going to come up or something's going to change. And so you wait till the last possible minute. Lawyers are the biggest procrastinators in the world. Deborah, I'm not sure what you're asking. Hoping this isn't a stupid question, but with all the BD, I mean, are you talking about Brendan? But I don't know what you're asking. Sorry. Thanks, Misty. I'm going to miss you guys. I will. But again, if my health takes a turn for the better, I'll be back. I will probably always be on a limited amount of activity, though, because I can't let it get this bad again. I want Steve and Brendan. I want justice for them. I want to see them free, but I can't kill myself over it. Yeah, and the thing is that even if there's a confession, it still doesn't automatically do anything. There has to be corroboration of a confession. It's crazy. There are people who, this happened in the Juka case that I covered, a couple months ago. Same thing. The guy actually confessed, and he confessed and said this other guy was not involved, and yet he's still sitting in prison. They're saying we have no corroboration that this guy did it alone. We think you helped him, even though the guy who actually did it is like, I'm not even friends with him. I don't know him. I did this on my own. Doesn't matter. And you think that, once you actually have a culprit, then leave the other guy alone. You have no evidence against him. But that just happened in that case. I mean, it happens all the time. It happens all the time that someone confesses and they're like, well, we're not going to just take it at face value. We need corroboration. Well, sometimes there is no corroboration. Yeah, I don't see that happening either. But even if it did, I mean, imagine how frustrating that would be if somebody came forward and confessed, and then it's not going to be me, but whoever was explaining this legal stuff said, just so you know, that doesn't mean he's going to be released. They could actually arrest the other person and still keep him there, because they could always say, well, we think that he was still involved, or we whatever, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's crazy what they can get away with. Oh, someone who's privy to the planting. That type of confession might help. I mean, might be good enough. But again, just because somebody planted evidence does not mean that Steve is innocent. They will maybe grant him a new trial because of the impropriety, but they will not flat out release him because of that. They will say that doesn't prove he's innocent. And honestly, there's really nothing at this point that can prove Steve's innocent. We don't have the smoking gun. We don't have the one piece of DNA evidence that we just need to find who it matches. We don't have that here, I mean, and so that's why it's very difficult. And that's why it's so hard, because last time it took forever for them to actually run the DNA. But there was that thing. And even then, I mean, with the fingernail scrapings, they identified those fingers, or they knew that they didn't belong to Steve, and they knew they didn't belong to Penny. And yet they still would not overturn his conviction and give him a hearing, or even have a hearing. I think they might have had a hearing on it. Can't remember. That's my favorite saying. I'm just going to wear that across my forehead. I can't remember. But they still tried to say well, that doesn't mean Steve's not guilty. Even though all evidence pointed to the fact that he had nothing to do with it. And now you actually had another suspect, and they still wouldn't even, acknowledge the possibility that Steve could have been innocent. And if it wasn't for that freaking hair, Steve would still be in, well, yeah, I don't know how long. I can't remember how long. So I can't. Never mind. How long was Steve supposed to be in for that one? Was it life? I can't. This is what I'm talking about. The easiest stuff, the most brainless stuff. I can't remember. It's comical. If it wasn't so horrible and distressing me so much, it would be comical. He was in for 18 years, but what was his actual length supposed to be? Yeah, he did 18, so he's supposed to get 32. Is that what it was? Again, I am sitting here in complete disbelief that I don't know this off the top of my head. I mean, this is why I get very upset and why I got so emotional before, because I feel like I should know this like nothing, and I seriously have no idea. Thank you. Thank you, 33 years. Okay, so, oh boy, he'd probably just be about getting out. But I mean, he would have been in there a long time if it wasn't for that hair. It doesn't matter, 32, 33, whatever. It wasn't a life sentence, which is what again, this is what I talk about. This is what I meant. I sound like an idiot because I can't remember anything. Yeah, I mean, he would have served the time on he served a time. So that's why they say the first 18 years, he would have served the gun charge no matter what. So he really wasn't wrongfully imprisoned for 18 years. He was wrongfully imprisoned for at least 12, and chances are he would not have served the full the full amount on the gun charge. You never know though, because he was already a convicted felon, and so they might have kept him that long. But okay, so are there any other questions? I have been on so much longer with how I was feeling. I didn't think I was going to make it through the first half hour, and instead I had to break down and everything. And again, I hope that I didn't, I don't know. I hope nobody is just like, wow, she's a freak. I think you guys know me well enough by now to know that I usually am just all business and that's it. But yeah, Rhonda, they said that one of my medications can cause brain fog, but this is more than fog. I mean, this is like flat out. I lost the remote the other day, like literally had not moved and lost the remote. I resorted to looking like in the refrigerator and looking in the bathroom and looking, because I'm so absent-minded right now that I could see myself. Like I looked in the garbage. So I'm like, did I throw it away? Like I have no confidence in anything that I do because I am so absent-minded. Thank you. And who said I might be on tomorrow with Eric Jose? I don't really think I need to be. I think I've covered it all. And maybe he'll watch this. He can answer the stuff. Travis is here though. So Travis, I think, is already going to be on with him. So Travis can fill in for me. Thanks, Victoria. No, I'm not gluten intolerant. I don't have any kind of allergies. I have a cat allergy, but I don't have any other kind of allergies, no food allergies. I don't even have hay fever. So yeah, I don't see that it would be that. And trust me though, you do not want to know the amount of testing I've already been through and that I'm continuing to go through. It's just ridiculous. Yeah, the ginkgo biloba. Like I said, I think that this is past that. I have to get a CT for my head and my neck, and an MRI. I don't know, but they might do a neurological workup if that doesn't do anything. I don't know. They said that they don't usually do that for somebody my age, and I'm like, yeah, I get it, but so I think they're just doing it though because they know I'm really messed up. No, Eric Jose is going to go live tomorrow. He was unable to go live tonight. So that's why I told him I was going to go live tonight and he's going to do it tomorrow. I don't know the time, but usually with him, it's later at night. But I don't know for sure. And as I said, my daughter is coming home. I'm picking her up in Chicago at 3:30 and then we're probably going to get something to eat. And I'm going to be with her tomorrow night. I haven't seen her in 3 months. So I don't think I'm going to want to get on the computer and talk about this crap anymore. I'm already so over this whole decision that I don't want to talk about it ever again because it makes me crazy. God, I'm so sick of talking about myself. This is so not like me. I am to my friends, in private chats, I'll explain things going on, but to just randomly start talking about it, oh my God, it's so not me. So I feel bad about that. I apologize. Yes, Sue, you've seen her more recently than I am. Sue was nice enough to hang out with my daughter for a day. And Taylor, for those of you who remember Taylor from Mammothon, and that's the thing, maybe I want to do a video with Taylor. I think she's going to be really busy, but she absolutely hated every minute of being in Cyprus. But she learned a lot. She was miserable, hated it, and didn't want to be there, wanted to leave every single day. But yet she learned so much. So. And I don't understand a word she says anymore because it's all complicated legal or medical crap. Yeah, what would an evidentiary hearing yield? Well, that's just it. I expected that she was going to deny this no matter what. I just expected her to deny it after an evidentiary hearing. And you don't know what would have been said. So it's really hard to say for sure because said they could have said some stupid thing that just blew it for them, I'm sure they would have been coached, very well about what they shouldn't say by their attorneys and everything, but you don't know what an evidentiary hearing would have uncovered. The fact is that they didn't ask for any information from them. The best we got was a stupid phone call. What was it? The accidental phone call? That was like the most we had. And they really, have given no explanation for their actions whatsoever. And yet she determined that they didn't think it was exculpatory, potentially exculpatory, and that they didn't act in bad faith. It's crazy. Yeah, there should have been one. There's absolutely no way you can make this kind of decision. You can't make this kind of decision without any facts. There is nothing factual that was given by the state with regards to their actions. Nothing. She just filled in the blanks herself. Yeah, and I'm like a lot of you. Yeah, I just want to see Kathleen be able to go at somebody. I really do. I think there's times that she just wants to get them on the stand. She doesn't care how, for what reason. She just wants somebody on the stand. And I saw that Buting tweeted after I'd posted my thing, and he said, like, a lot of assumptions without a hearing. And I was like, thanks, Jerry. Yeah, I think that's the that was the first takeaway I had. And it's kind of good to know sometimes that I knew I wasn't crazy at that point. But yeah, and I mean, obviously, when everybody else read it, they saw the same thing. They're like, these aren't facts. These are things she's just making up in her head. All right, so you guys sick of me. I probably have like 10 people. Oh no, I still have a lot here. I actually still have quite a few. You guys didn't all leave me. I thought for sure I was going to just kill the room completely. And like, she's having a meltdown. I don't want to watch this. No, she was not ordered to have an evidentiary hearing. She was ordered to conduct any proceedings necessary to make a decision on the claim. Apparently, she didn't think there needed to be a hearing. Yeah, actually, no, Falcon, I mean, even Kathleen really did not try to claim that it was apparently exculpatory. She was really pushing it was potentially exculpatory, because it was. I mean, there was the potential that if she could have done the testing, it could have been determined that those were Teresa's remains. That's exactly what potentially exculpatory means. Apparently, no, I mean, it would not necessarily be apparent that it could be exculpatory, but when you look at everything as the big picture, as how she presented it in the brief, or the motion, then you can see that it had not only potential exculpatory value under Youngblood, but it should have been reasonable to believe that it could have, incriminated somebody or exculpated Steve. And either one of those things should have been satisfied. Denise, you don't get rid of us that easy. Well, she's saying she focused on apparent a lot, but that's under Greenwald. That's not even under Youngblood. That's why Kathleen said that, she talked about Greenwald as the precursor to Youngblood, but it's Greenwald that talks about evidence having apparently exculpatory value. She filed this under Youngblood. So that's what I mean, that she really was not trying to say that it was apparently exculpatory. I mean, okay, if you want to see it that way, maybe, but she was really focused on the requirements under Youngblood. Was it potentially exculpatory in her mind? And I think in a lot of our minds, it's hard to say that it wasn't, at least potentially, because all it would take was, and this is what I'm saying, like what I said before about like the rape kits. It's like, based on her reasoning, then you should think that 20-year-old rape kits have no potential exculpatory value because they weren't scientifically proven to go back to anybody back when it happened. So that is the logic, and that is the reasoning that she's using right now. She's saying, since they weren't scientifically proven back then, they have no potentially exculpatory value. And again, when you put it in a different context that actually like is a little more black and white, you can see that. Again, why did they keep the DNA? Like, why did they keep this DNA, this pubic hair, from Steve's first case? Because again, according to what this judge is saying, well, it wasn't scientifically matched anybody back then, so it has no value. That's literally what she's saying. Well, that's the point, though, is that Eisenberg was never able to discount that those bones were human. The best she could say is that they were possibly, probably, and in her original report, she said some were human. So there's no way to establish it because they're gone now. So they didn't even allow Steve to get to that point, to be able to test it, to say like, hey, if this is human, then it goes against what you presented during trial, and that's a due process violation because I did not get a fair trial because you presented false evidence to the jury. And it is that simple. It seems like I'm oversimplifying, but it is that simple. A fair trial is a fair trial. You present truthful evidence in front of a jury, and obviously with the way the legal system is, you get now, instead you have lawyers that will try to trick juries, try to use emotions, try to do any trick they can to keep a jury from actually ruling on the evidence. So that's, it was already established that they at least could have been human. So how can you say they couldn't potentially be exculpatory? And as I said before, even if they want to try to say they weren't Teresa's, well, why don't you care whose they were? Don't get killed in Manitowoc County because they don't give a shit who you are. They really don't, apparently. They'll just give your bones to some family that, their loved one was killed, and they'll just pass you off as their loved one. It sounds ridiculous, but that is exactly what they did. I didn't see that one, Sue. I honestly, I was trying to answer questions, and and I will never at any time not suck at Twitter. Okay. I rarely tweet, that, but I have been the last couple of days, and oh my God, I kept screwing things up and replying in the wrong places and whatever. Why can't you edit? This is why I can't do Twitter. I already can't talk in that few characters, and I can't do anything that I can't edit. Because no matter how many times I look at things, I screw them up. So other than that, though, I really have not paid attention to anything else that was on Twitter. I didn't have time. I actually sent the notification to you guys about how I had the Facebook notification logo where it had 98 notifications. And I was like, holy crap, it's been a long time since I've seen that. I didn't miss that. Right, Sapper. I feel weird calling you Sapper. Sapper. I'll just call you Cop. I don't know. But yeah, that was the whole point. And again, that's what they should have had to explain. What did you tell the Halbachs these bones were? Because that goes a long way to determining what they thought. And oh gosh, so I totally lost my train of thought there. And if they weren't Teresa's bones, why did you give them to the family? If they were her bones, how, why? I just want to know why. Why did you give these bones to the family when everything is saying that there was no evidence they were Teresa's, and there's a lot of evidence they might not have been human? But again, if they told the Halbachs that was Teresa, that changes the whole argument about whether they thought it was potentially exculpatory or even under the statute. If they told the family that these are Teresa's remains, that violates the statute because they gave away biological evidence that belonged to the victim. But again, this judge, even under those circumstances, would have said, well, they were making an assumption because it wasn't scientifically proven. So when you're going against that type of brick wall, how do you win like that? Because honestly, everything that could have been found out, apparently she could have explained it with saying that, well, it wasn't scientifically proven. And this goes back to my whole rapist kid analogy. It said that's a ridiculous argument to say that just because it wasn't scientifically proven at the time, it has no value. Yeah, that is what she's saying. She's saying it doesn't matter what they believed because it wasn't scientifically proven that they were her bones. And that goes against the whole part of the statute where it said, was it reasonable for them to think it could incriminate or exculpate somebody? A reasonable test has nothing to do with science. Science is exact. A reasonable test has to do what somebody should or probably believes about a certain thing. And again, she made this ridiculous statement, well, they weren't scientifically proven to her, so it doesn't matter what they think. It very much mattered what they think, because the test is, was it reasonable for them to dispose of this stuff? Which a question she never answered. She never really answered, because she immediately went to the constitutional stuff, which had nothing to do with that part of the statute. No, she didn't want to talk about the statute, and she specifically didn't want to talk about that one because she blew right by it, and immediately said, this is where Greenwald comes in. No, it doesn't. Whether something is apparently exculpatory, I said this already, but whether something is apparently exculpatory and whether it's reasonable to think that something could be incriminating or exculpating are not the same thing. And she was using them like they were interchangeable because she didn't want to address that one issue. No, nobody goes on a stand. The Court of Appeals is a review court. There is no witnesses, stands, nothing like that. That would, if they order a hearing, then it goes back to the circuit court, and that's where, because again, in general, the circuit court is the fact-finding court, unless you're in her court, which she just decides the facts. But yeah, there is no such thing in a Court of Appeals. They are a review court only. They do not. There's no witnesses. There's no hearing there. The hearing would go back to the circuit court. Falcon, you're talking in circles like she did, and you're giving me a headache. That's literally how she talked. If it's apparently exculpatory, that means it's possibly exculpatory and it's apparent. That's literally how she explained it. And that's exactly what I said, Don. I said, she's going to have a field day with this one. I am actually surprised she didn't tweet more about it. Because, I was furious with this thing. I can't even imagine what she thought when she read this. So I'm sure she's going to have a lot of fun with writing that part of the appellant brief. She's going to lose it on this judge completely. And who cares, because she won't be in front of her again. So, you got to be professional. You can't call her a, mindless hack of a judge. But you can certainly call out these questionable decisions. I feel like I'm just randomly talking, and that do you guys even want to still be here? You don't have to make me feel good, because I said this might be my last video. This is like another marathon it could turn into. Maybe I will come back for another marathon. Who knows? It's not supposed to be exculpatory if it can scientifically be proven. There are a lot of cases. That's why you have all these constitutional violations. Stuff isn't just exculpatory if it's DNA or science. There are other things that can exculpate, alibis, stuff like that. Yeah, I don't know where she made that connection that it can only be exculpatory if it was scientifically proven, because that's just flat out false. So people have exculpatory information all the time. Exculpatory just means anything that suggests that you didn't do it. Or that somebody else did. That's considered exculpatory too. Just having evidence that maybe somebody else did it, that's potentially exculpatory. Don't ask me to say anything complicated right now. I can barely get my brain to figure out what words I want to say, let alone spit them out. I know you guys can go all night. With you and Linda here, I'm afraid. You guys could keep me here all night. And then Linda just says, I can't stay awake any longer. Girl, woman. No, it's okay. I should probably go too, because honestly, I'm like really red. Like I said, I do think I have a fever. And I have to pick up Taylor. I have to drive to Chicago tomorrow. So I'm not even going to answer that. That has nothing to do with the discussion right now. All right, that was enough for me to say, okay, it's time to call it quits. I'm not even going to dignify that with an answer. You've been here more than all night. You've been here all day, all night. Falcon, what are you asking now? The whole conversation as to whether the bones are exculpatory begins with the establishment that they are human. Well, yeah. And that was established. Eisenberger's original report established they were human. And even her testimony, even though she somehow changed it with no explanation as to why she changed it, again, hearing would have been nice on that, was that they're possibly human. So that's the biggest thing. It's like, if they're possibly human, let's find out if they are human. And if they are human, do they belong to Teresa? Because that could be important. But again, this judge is acting like, nah, none of that matters. Nothing. We can't do that because it wasn't, it's not something that was figured out at the time. That's exactly her argument. She's making that at the time, it was not scientifically proven, which to me, again, goes completely against why we have a DNA statute or a scientific testing statute. You really don't. I mean, I don't think we'll see any here. No, not in this situation. I mean, in the federal courts you do, but not really in state court of appeals. I mean, probably not unheard of, but it's not common. It's only in federal cases where everybody wants to get involved that you usually see the amici briefs. Thanks, Denise. Thank you, Sabergov. He's saying it much more easily than I am. It's like, she is the one that said they were human, and that's why when the judge said that Hawkins just took it upon himself to put these we're human. I'm like, he didn't take it upon himself. That's what the report said. And she was making excuses that he just decided to transform the courtroom testimony, where she said they might possibly be human, into them definitively being human. He was going off the report that she wrote. And again, I would want to know, why are there discrepancies between your report, what you testified to, and what is on this post-conviction report? Why is there any discrepancy? Because there shouldn't be. And that's why you should have had a hearing to find out why. Right. The hearing is supposed to answer those questions. And especially when it comes to making a determination about what law enforcement thought when they did these things. That is the biggest mind blower of this entire thing, that she literally just made up what these officers probably thought, or what she thinks they thought when they did this. And that is so wrong. That is so wrong on so many levels. That is the most egregious part of this, is that, you can never establish bad faith without asking the person who disposed of it why they did it. It is so, as I said originally, it's so ludicrous. It is absolute common sense that you can't make a decision on why somebody did something without asking them why they did it. And she said that she didn't know what report he was using. And again, if there's any confusion over what he was using to make that statement that these were human bones, you have a hearing and you figure it out. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. The whole thing is ridiculous. This is probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever read. That is what this whole takeaway is. I have never even said once that this absolutely should have been overturned because of this. I have said there should have been a hearing. There is no way anybody is going to convince me that she could have made these decisions without having a hearing. It is absolutely ridiculous. And as I said, historically, every young blood issue where they're trying to establish bad faith has at least had a hearing. They've all been denied, but they at least had a hearing. Why? To ask the person why they did what they did. That's the number one thing. You can't decide what a person's frame of mind was just by deciding on your own without any information. I mean, it sounds so stupid when I think about it. I mean, when I said that, like I've been kind of off the radar for a little bit, or off the grid for a little while. I mean, now you have factual information as to why I did that. Prior to that, if anybody even noticed, I mean, they could just say like, oh, well, maybe she's on vacation, or maybe he's this, or maybe that. That's all speculation or drawing conclusions about things. None of that is based in fact. Now you have facts because I've told you why. That's the whole point, is that you can't draw a conclusion on why somebody did something without hearing from them. Oh, God, Travis, I don't know. I honestly have no clue. I will lose my crap when people tell me that Teresa's still alive. I think it is the most, I thought it was a ridiculous thing to say from day one. I still think it's ridiculous. I know people have their theories, but it makes zero sense to me. Why? Where did she go? How do you have a young woman who is popular, has friends, loves her family, and she's just going to disappear off the face of the earth? Come on. It doesn't happen. People are not, they are not put in witness protection if you're not a witness to something. They do not frame innocent people to fake somebody else's death. I mean, it's so ridiculous. Yeah, I don't know what happened to Teresa, but I am very confident that she is unfortunately dead. That's not the point. I mean, Falcon, you didn't have to establish they were human because it was already told that they were human. The reports already said they were human. The report that gave the bones away said they were human. The evidence ledger where they were released from evidence said they were human. That doesn't need to be proven in order to have a hearing. You need to find out first, like, why did you do this? And if during the hearing you found out that, well, Hawkins said, oh, well, I was going off this report, I was going off this. That's how you develop the facts in order to make an actual decision. There is no stumbling block. I mean, it's in the record that there were human bones. So I mean, that's really not a stumbling block at all. That is something that is an actual fact when it is in the records and when it is in reports that those were human bones. And it doesn't matter that she testified and said, well, maybe they're only possibly human. Again, then you have a discrepancy that you need to get to the bottom of. Yeah, you're asking her to prove something that has already been established scientifically. They were never scientifically proven to be Teresa's, but they were scientifically ruled to be human. And if anything, get Eisenberg in the stand and say, why did your original report say this was human, this was a human, this was human? And then you got on the stand and testified that, well, they weren't, or they were possibly human. For a scientist, that is a really drastic change in opinion. And they never explored that. And again, that's more on beauty and strength, but they never explored that. They never said, wait a minute, how could you say in these reports, when you actually physically looked at these bones, that they were human? And now you're saying, well, you're not so sure. How can anybody have had confidence in her opinion when she made such a drastic change in her thinking? And then the later reports said that they were human again. So again, that is all a big giant, this doesn't make sense. Honestly, I answered the question about my opinion on whether she's alive or dead, but I don't really want to get into all that. Trust me, that's one of my number one pet peeves if I see people ask that question or bring that up. Edward Wayne Edwards, Teresa being alive. What's the other ones? Again, that's only the good thing about the things that I forget. I forget the things that really irritate me, the theories that irritate me. I can't decide if Edward is Wayne Edwards or if Teresa being alive is my worst, my least favorite, but they're both like very close. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, the only interaction we have from the state side about this issue was the phone call. You know, well, we think we have that, but we have to go and double check and do this or whatever. That is not an explanation. That is somebody that is very nervous about the fact that they potentially gave away evidence that could overturn his conviction. So to sit there and say that they didn't think there was any value, like clearly they were worried because they didn't even argue it on its merits. They argued it on procedural grounds. And again, she still didn't order a hearing. Even the Court of Appeals said that's one of the reasons the Court of Appeals granted the remand, because they said that the state didn't even address any of the merits of what Kathleen was saying. They argued that she shouldn't be allowed to do this. It should be procedurally barred. She shouldn't be able to send it back to get another remand. This case needs to move forward. They used every excuse in the book other than answering whether they did this or not, whether they gave away evidence. And the Court of Appeals said, well, since you actually didn't address the issue at all, I have to think there's a problem here. So send it back to the Court of Appeal or to the Circuit Court and figure it out. They have to be. If the bones are human, they have to be exculpatory. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The state said, period. And I'm going by what was said at trial. You can't just bring like any theory you want to put in it. You have to go by what he was convicted on during the trial. They were told, the jury was told that Teresa never left the property, that Steve killed her, in the bedroom, and that he killed her in the garage and he burned her in her backyard. If those bones turn out to be human, of course they're potentially exculpatory because they're nowhere near his part of like where the salvage yard is. I mean, they're near, but still like miles away in some cases. So yeah, it's automatically exculpatory because you can't sit there and say that everything that happened on the salvage yard property when then bones are found strewn all over the place, especially when they say that they're human or even possibly human. So it's automatically potentially exculpatory based on what was presented at trial. Now, if you're talking about investigation, then it's not necessarily exculpatory because at that point you had not made the commitment to saying that she was killed on the property or whatever. And that's why people were asking me, and this is why I brought up the thing about Adnan's case, where they said, well, couldn't Kratz just say, well, okay, he'll change his theory? And I said, you can't do that. You can't change it after a jury has already made a decision based on what they were presented. Now, if they would have granted Steve a retrial, they can change their narrative however they want. It's a whole new ballgame. It's starting from scratch. They can give a completely different theory to what they presented in his first trial. So that's a different story. But as long as he's convicted of this crime, that is the narrative they have to stick with. And since that's what was presented, absolutely, if human bones are found elsewhere, that is absolutely exculpatory. Or potentially, but honestly, if there's any human bones, that should be at least something that people are curious about. But they're absolutely potentially, and I think those would be apparently exculpatory too, because hello, you shouldn't have a bunch of human bones laying around. Person was allegedly killed right here, and you're finding other human bones. If that's not apparently exculpatory, based on their narrative, I don't know what is. Because like I said, it's like they just casually act like it's normal to have a bunch of human bones lying all over the place. Again, it just baffles me. Yeah, he said that Kratz said that he wasn't going to waste 10 seconds, 20 seconds on it, even though the defense made a huge deal about how important these were. And again, that's something the judge didn't even acknowledge. This was extremely important to their defense. whether or not those bones were human, because hello, it completely shot Kratz's theory down. So it was very important to the defense. Could it not, the notion that only some of her bones were transported to the quarry, fit with the prosecution's theory? Well, they never really fully committed to that, ever. You know, they never, from what again, yeah, mental, but I don't think they ever really fully committed to that. They just said that that was the burn site, and that there were burns in the burn barrel, which suggested they could have been moved. But I don't think they fully committed to that absolutely happening. Well, let's face it, when it comes to these bones, when it comes to the burn pit and the bonfire and the body and the bones and all these burn barrels and all these bones other places, they did the absolute bare minimum to try to investigate the truth of what was going on. I don't know if they did the bare minimum. They did like very little. So no matter what, again, if you have a bunch of even potentially human bones scattered over several miles, that should concern you. That should concern law enforcement. Do we have a serial killer? Are all these from the same person? Or are they all different people? It's kind of a big deal. It's just like nobody seems to care. They're like, we got rid of them. So what? Like, we gave away human bones. Why don't you care who they belong to? Even if they don't belong to Teresa, why don't you care to who they did belong to? And again, it's so just unnerving that you could have law enforcement just be so cavalier about caring about who these bones belong to. Oh, so there's some human bones laying around. That bothers me. If I found some human bones in my backyard, I'm not going to just be like, whatever. It's just another day. No, I'll be freaking out. But if I found like deer bones, okay, whatever, get them off my property. But other than that, who cares? But that's how they treated these bones. They treated them like they were all just insignificant animal bones that nobody should care about. And that's just so disturbing. Again, if you're going to get into details what was said, I'm the wrong person to be like chatting with about this, because yeah, God, I used to know every word that was said during that trial. I can't remember any of it. I shouldn't. I mean, I have to laugh because otherwise it's ridiculous. Oh, Bear. I do know Bear's name. All right, so let's see. A lot of people like finally said like, "Oh, I'm done." No, how do I still have 50 people watching? I don't have this many people when I actually have know what I'm talking about. I got nowhere to be, but but I would like to keep the conversation moving, like maybe switch a different area or something, because I don't want to keep happening on this. I mean, I think I've covered it pretty sufficiently. If you disagree with my thinking on this, that is totally fine. But I kind of think it should matter that they're human bones, even potentially human bones, scattered all over, a county. Call me crazy. I think sometimes that's the things that they just don't, like I said, this judge, it's like, just think this through for a second. Think through what you're talking about. You are talking about possibly a human being that has not been identified, and you are saying it has no value. I mean, like, I don't know. I guess I have a lot more respect for human life than these people do. Because it's just so baffling that they just are so like whatever about what could possibly be multiple dead people. And you look at what, a big deal one murder was in Manitowoc County. So you imagine if they had a serial killer? They just shouldn't. You don't want to let me go. I'm shocked that I'm still even talking. I didn't, like I said, about 15 minutes, about 5 minutes before I posted the link, I was like, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do this. But then I was like, am I ever going to really then feel like doing it, especially after it's been a few days? I knew I couldn't do it tomorrow. And so I was like, just suffer through it. And I've got a lot of really good viewers. I have a lot of great members in my group. So I was, would not have been surprised to think that people are understanding about my situation. I don't like feeling and sounding pathetic, and that's how I feel all the time right now. It's not a good look for me. And I truly feel like that all the time. I'm one of those people that I try not to put myself in situations where I'm going to be embarrassed, humiliated. I'm just and trust me, it happens, but I try to avoid it at all costs. So the fact that I felt like I couldn't avoid it and that it was just, I was looking dumber and dumber was a problem. I remember what it was like when my grandma had Alzheimer's, and we actually laughed about it because sometimes you just had to, you're going to find towels in the refrigerator and milk in the dryer, whatever. That's things that you just kind of laugh, but it was also very, very heartbreaking and very sad. My mama, Southern family, my mama thought I was her daughter and my cousin was her other daughter. And she tried to discipline us like her children. And yeah, like I said, we kind of got some humor out of it sometimes, but overall very, very sad. And even the thought of even potentially that happening to me, because again, I carry the Alzheimer's gene. So that is probably the scariest thing that could happen to me. I've always prided myself on my intelligence. And so if you want to say one scary thing, lose a limb, I could handle it. Get most diseases, I can handle it. But losing my brain, it's tough to think about. And maybe I'll just wake up one day and it'll be great. Or maybe they'll do these tests and they'll find out it's a minor thing that can be fixed. I don't know. It's just the unknown is hard. And if this was the only thing I was dealing with, but again, it's just I'm a walking shit show. I really am. There you go, killing the room again. Thank you. Again, I don't need people messaging me saying, "Are you okay?" or "I feel so bad." Please, it's fine. I know people care, and I know, I said I know I have a really good group of people in my group and in here. Oh, Tina, poor Tina. Okay, every time I get new test results, I consult with Tina because we have had so many of the same issues. Her memory hasn't gone. So that's the thing. When I can't remember, Tina is the first person I ask. Can you remember? Do we know? I always say, do we know this? Did we know this already? I say that all the time. And she'll be like, yeah, I think so. Remember this? And sometimes she'll jog my memory and sometimes it's just a lost cause. Yeah, my thyroid has wreaked havoc in my life. The last time I have Graves' disease. So the last time that it flared up, I lost half my hair. I have Graves' eye disease. My eyes started bugging out. I would sleep with my eyes open. It was just scary. And I gained so much weight from the medication. So it was like, you can take this medication and gain 60 pounds in 4 months, or you can die. Those are your options. I'm like, why are those always my only two options? Can't I ever get some middle ground somewhere? I tried the radioactive ablation, which is supposed to work in 99% of people. Didn't work for me. Eventually it regulated on its own. But unfortunately taking a downturn again. And I'm trying to not have to have it removed because there's a lot of issues with that. I know people have had their thyroid removed and it's really still wreaked havoc on their body. This time I have not lost my hair yet. I could, but I haven't as of yet. And the weight has been under control because I've been pretty small dosage. And my eyes haven't been bugging out as much. So that's good. But I was like, yeah, great. I'm going to be bald, bug-eyed, and fat. That's awesome. I'm not going to be happy till I have a disease named after me, just so everyone knows. I figure it's got to happen. Statistically, it's just got to happen eventually. Okay, so is everyone leaving me now? No, you're still like 50 people here. Only like 3 people are talking. Where are the rest of you? Or did you like go make a sandwich and so you just left me on? Oh, I know you're here, Sue. I know you, even if you're in the background. Even though, what time is it for you? Fen, where have you been? Were you here this whole time? I'm sorry, Mary. I feel your pain. That's for sure. Victoria. Oh, Victoria, we need to get together again soon. Well, when I'm like able to like be a human being. Travis, I can't believe you're still hanging out. Fen has to hear this. She knows all this already, so she can get very bored. He said, everybody else, like some of these people know, Sue already knows my whole situation. Tina's the only one that gets the side-by-side comparison for test results. We were talking about my urine today. Too much TMI. I had that blood or that testing done, so I'm already like, Tina, what does this mean? And then what's funny about it is then instantly, like, oh, within a few seconds, Tina has her test results for the same thing. And then we compare, and it's like, yep, yeah, okay, we bought the same thing. This is our entertainment in our old age. Yeah, I know there's a couple people that said that they've been gone for a while. And honestly, I've been gone for a while, so I probably wouldn't have noticed. I actually just got to the point where I couldn't even look at the group just because everything was overwhelming. I mean, existing was overwhelming the last few weeks. Yeah, yeah, we both have my chart. We have shared way too much stuff from our my charts. Mm-hmm. I have physical therapy too every week, so that blows. Do people just want to sit here and look at me? Because there's otherwise just random chit chat going on. I'm pretty sure we're done talking about the decision now. Poor people. I mean, if somebody watches this later, they can clearly like peace out like way earlier than this. I should have had a warning though, like, okay, we're really essentially done here. Now we're just going to babble incessantly. And all I really want to do is to make, for anybody that's in my group to just be able to explain what's going on. Oh, Fen, I already told everybody. We were here when I just said that, like, the group is going to have to pretty much run itself. Yes, BP consult today. I was telling them about that earlier, how my blood pressure actually went up today thanks to this stupid thing. But yeah, Fen is an admin in my group. So, any questions or anything, you can message her. She doesn't know. She knows how to get a hold of me, or she can ask Travis or whatever. Same with Julie, or Pom Pom. She's not here though. I don't think she could be. You never know with her. Angie. Okay, Angie. Why are you? Didn't you say goodnight like 2 hours ago? Angie's an admin too, but Angie's really busy right now, so I'll tell people not to bother you if they don't have to. Justice is in the other room. I cannot believe I haven't heard her scratching at the door at all. But she's good. She's getting fat. She's going to be a fatty. I know some of you have seen where she likes to crawl through the slats on the steps. She can barely get through now. She struggles sometimes. She's such a fatty. Oh, I'm sorry, Rhonda. Yeah, that's not a good reason to be gone. I thought it was like you're gone because you're taking some luxurious vacation or something. No, that's not a good reason to be gone. You're getting the hang of one job, so it's getting better. I hate, like, I feel like I shouldn't even be complaining then when other people, I always try to say that though. I think other people always have a lot more going on than I do. I've never been very good at allowing myself to feel like a victim. I'm very bad at it, actually. And for once, I mean, I'm bad about going to the doctor just because, like, it always ends up the same. You know, they can never figure out what it is and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, I've been doing what I need to do. Just hasn't helped yet. God, don't make me start talking about myself again. I really hate talking about myself. I'll talk about, like, my daughter, my dog, whatever, endlessly. But I hate talking about myself. Thanks, Mary. Night. I wish you could, Angie, but I'm picking up Taylor tomorrow. I was so upset because Angie was like, I'm just sticking around the house. I'm going to go in the pool. And she has a really nice pool. And she asked me if I want to come over. And I wanted to so badly, but I honestly could not move. There's no way I could have even driven there. And the sun actually very much aggravates it. So I'm pale as a ghost, too, because I can't be out in the sun. Who are you asking? Bella? Do I know how Bella is doing? I saw you guys asking about Bella, but I know you were asking me. From what I hear, she's doing really well. That she and Mama are doing really well. That when, I think what I was told was that when Al isn't there, Bella sleeps on his side of the bed. But when Al is there, she sleeps in between them. She's not getting out of the bed. And they didn't really deal with that with Bandit. Good night, Denise. And Bella did find her voice. So for those of you that actually got to meet her, and so I was like, wow, she is so good. And like, I can't believe she doesn't think, yeah, she found her voice pretty quick. Chihuahuas are barkers. Yep, she's right by Mama. Had a big smile on her face, holding Bella on her lap. I wonder if she's getting her name right. We actually wrote, because she kept calling her Bandit, which is understandable, you know. She was having a hard time getting used to the name. So we wrote it on a piece of paper and hung it up on the wall next to where she sits so that she'd remember. And she kept forgetting my name too, so I wrote my name underneath. It's so funny. I don't know why she struggles with my name so much. She just does. It's like, I guess Tracy's not a really easy name to remember because she'll be like, I know you, but I don't remember your name. And then like 15 minutes later, yeah, I forgot your name again. The talker. Yep, she said that to me. Here, Steve called and she's like, here, I'm going to give you to the talker. God, we're all like just really living it up on a Friday night, aren't we? I feel like I should wrap it up because I think everybody's just hanging out for no reason. I want to keep everybody. But yeah, it's probably the same reason. This is what I said after, for those of you that really paid attention or were around during Mammothon, especially during the final couple hours. I mean, we'd been on the air for 48 hours. We really hadn't slept much. And yet in the final hour, you'd think we'd all be ready to wrap it up. And then it's like we all kind of just kept sitting there. Like nobody actually wanted to officially end it. So it was just a few of us that we kept talking, and it's like nobody wanted to quite do it. And I said that it reminded me of the ending of Ferris Bueller, where he comes out and he looks at the audience. He's like, "Why are you still here? Go home." It's like, that's exactly what I kept thinking of. But yeah, it was like, marathon was crazy. It was like such an experience for us, and that when it was done, we really didn't. It's like we needed to be done because we were exhausted, but we didn't really want it to be done because it was fun. Except for me losing my crap a few times, but. Aw, thank you. God, I can't imagine anybody saying I'm a highlight of anything. Yeah, I think that is it. I mean, it's kind of good because what I usually see in the groups is that people just get insane when we're waiting. Oh God, the craziness just is up like huge, like to the insane level. People get bored, and then there's a lot of drama that starts, and there's just other just like crazy theories come out, and it's just weird how things get when people have to wait. But then we also though do have where, that's when we spend a lot of time, to the people I'm closest to at least, talking about non-ma'am things, like that's how we get to know each other, because there's just nothing ma'am really to speak of, but we still get to know each other. Me losing my crap was one of the best parts. I think you guys have, people have seen a lot of different sides of me in my videos. And you get to see them in real life too, because she's special. I really did, though. I felt bad about it, but seriously. I am not the most patient person in the world. That's what my problem is I just don't have patience. And when the same people are just going off in the chat, I just have no patience. But you've seen it in my group too. You see other groups where people give warnings and whatever, and you don't get that in my group. I mean, if it's a minor thing, yeah. But if you come in and start calling somebody names or being disrespectful, you're gone. I don't do warnings. I don't got time to give warnings. To me, if you're going to do that, you're always going to be a problem. You're not going to just find Jesus and all of a sudden start being a decent human being. Like, if you can come in and just be nasty to people for no reason, that's who you are. So I don't need you. So I'm the same way with the chats. It's like, I don't care. Go away. You're bothering me. And you're upsetting the people in the chat. So yeah, I'm pretty direct. So when people start acting up, I kind of lose my cool. Falcon, you're back. Why are we talking about this anymore? I want to understand your argument. Are you saying that it wasn't necessary for bones to be established as human via scientific means? I'm not sure what you're not grasping about what we're saying. We're saying that it was already essentially proven because the forensic anthropologist said they were human. Just because the actual FBI tests couldn't identify who they were, she is the one. For Eisenberg, the person that is all over this decision, is the one who said they were human. So I'm trying to figure out why you think we need to establish something that was already established. And again, it depends on what you mean by scientific means. If you're talking about DNA, that's a totally different thing. But yet, and this is what drives me crazy, this is what my daughter does. My daughter is certified in identifying human remains. Okay. She got her certification this summer, but she can look at a bone and she can know what race they are, what gender they are, about how old they are, their height. She can tell so much from her bones. And this freaking expert couldn't tell the difference between bird bones sometimes. It's just crazy. If a forensic anthropologist says that they're human, they should know that they're human. Bottom line, there shouldn't be any basically, I think they might be probably okay, maybe sort of, kind of. No, that is literally your job. And I've asked Taylor, because Taylor, I got a lot of pictures of skeletons over the summer, let me tell you. A lot of tables of bones I've got. And I said to her, can you seriously tell what part of the body each of these little pieces comes from? And she's like, yeah. Okay, sorry. you know, but that's what they do. I mean, that is their job. So for her to sit there and say they're human and then get on the stand and be like, well, I'm not sure. I mean, that's pretty ridiculous that a forensic anthropologist would say that. They can be established as human by just looking at them. That's what I'm saying. And like, it doesn't have to be scientifically. There doesn't need to be DNA. There doesn't need to be any testing like that. Like a forensic anthropologist looks at a bone, he or she should know whether it's human or not. That's their job. That's what they study. I said, again, my daughter studied skeletons and skeletal remains and human remains all summer. And, and she can tell. But this woman who was supposedly this big expert just wasn't sure. But her report said that they were. And so my big thing would be like, how do you change that? What made you change your opinion from them being human to all of a sudden saying they were possibly human? And was there a reason? Because, of course, me being a supporter, I'm going to think that, the state wanted her to say that. And so they convinced her to change her mind and change her testimony to make it not so obvious because they didn't want those bones to be, connected to the crime or connected to the salvage yard or Teresa in any way. That's the conspiracy part of me. But totally lost my thought. But you know what I was saying. That you don't need to have an actual scientific test to know that bones are human. Any good forensic anthropologist should be able to tell. My daughter sent me an article about there was what was it? Angie, I sent you the article. Like a skeleton of like 30,000 years ago, they had a skull and they were able to determine like cause, manner of death, how the person was laying, what they were killed with, everything. So again, this is from 30,000 years ago, and Leslie Eisenberg can't tell the difference between a deer bone and a human bone. Because now they want to test to see, they have because they couldn't, the one thing they weren't able to do was to identify them as being Teresa's. And that's what they're saying. They wanted to do new scientific, like now the testing is more sensitive, and they wanted to be able to say that, okay, we approved without a doubt that these are Teresa Halbach's remains. And that Teresa Halbach's remains were found in a place that the prosecution said they shouldn't have been found, that they couldn't have possibly been found there. I still am not understanding, like, really what's so complicated about this to understand. I mean, the whole point of why this issue came up is because those reports said they were human. And the question became, why are you giving away human bones? Especially if they're supposedly not even sure that they're human. It doesn't make sense. And there was just a lot of questions, and all of that should have been investigated through a hearing. Now, if they were tested and belonged to somebody else, that may not be apparently exculpatory, but it could still be potentially exculpatory because, hello, there's another person that was killed, unless you're going to try to say Stephen Avery killed that person too. Then again, that opens up the possibility that this could incriminate another person, like a serial killer. So even if they weren't identified as Teresa's, they still had potentially exculpatory value. So it's a fact that they just acted like the fact that they're a human was no big deal, or even potentially human. That's the problem. It's like, that is my whole issue with this. It's like, why didn't anybody make more of an effort to try to figure out who these bones belong to? And especially if you're going to give them away, which was many years later, maybe we should do that test first to see if we can identify who these poor people were before we just give these bones away. It's just a very disheartening type of way of thinking. Yeah, the questions never end in this case. And every time there's more questions than answers. Every time I think I get an answer, there's just more questions. And when they don't even grant a hearing, we're never going to get those answers. That's what's so frustrating. I've said, like, just give me one answer, one definitive answer to one question in this case. Please. That's all I'm asking for. Well, Carol, that's another thing that needed to be investigated. Not just why are you giving it away because of the preservation statute. It's just like, what led, I mean, were the Halbachs saying we want Teresa's remains, even though they should have known there were nothing but cremains? What led to them giving these away? Was it their idea? Was it the Halbachs' idea? You know, again, these isn't just, they didn't just wake up one day and say, we're going to decide to give these to the Halbachs. I mean, there had to be a talk about it. There had to be a reason for it. There had to be an initiating action that caused this to happen. And again, none of that is going to be answered because of this judge just thinking that it doesn't matter. And when we're talking about this, especially when, like I said, my daughter is now certified in mass casualty disaster victim identification. So we're talking plane crashes, terrorist attacks, things like that. And again, we're talking that forensic anthropologists and that they can identify very tiny little pieces of bone and whether they're human or not and what part of the body they go. It's amazing what they can tell. One bone looks like the other to me. I don't know. But I'm just amazed, especially when I'm looking at her books, the photographic book of bones, you know, like we have so many of those things. But that even with as many bones there are in the body, that they can not only tell, like, you know, that it's human, but they can tell which body part it went to. And it's crazy to think that. So that's why I said, when you have Eisenberg say they're human and then change her statement to they might have possibly be, I mean, I want to know why. There had to be a reason. Other than her just being incompetent, which was proven through, has been shown through some of her other cases. Which, again, would have been really nice. It would have been nice to have competent experts, Kathleen's experts, come in and actually truly give a competent opinion on a lot of this stuff, on the evidence, just in general. You know, none of the experts on either side were good. So, I mean, I really would love to see some competent experts and what they would testify about as far as all this evidence is. Wishful thinking, I know, but... And that's why it's, you know, that if Kathleen can ever get to that point, she has a lot of those experts. And I would love to know exactly what they think about all this stuff. Yeah, Taylor, yeah. Well, actually, Taylor doesn't even need to kick a body to know if they're dead. She just knows because she's good. No. She could, I mean, she was able to do that before, so she can pronounce death. She's been able to do that for a while, for a year now. I mean, and she's an MDI, so she's not a forensic anthropologist, but the training she went through was for forensic anthropology and archaeology and paleontology. And I mean, it's 3 months. So she went through, I said, I don't even understand the words involved. She sent me a message. I'm like, yep, I officially don't understand what you're talking about anymore. As much as I went to school a lot, and obviously I like the legal stuff, I have never been interested in medical stuff, and she loves it. Yeah, I don't know where she got that. I actually don't like science. I've always been a social science person, not a medical science person, like or any type of like chemistry, physics, any of that stuff. I've hated all of it. She loves all of it. I don't know whose kid she is, but didn't get that from me. But her curiosity about criminal minds and crime and things like that, that she got from me. Yeah, Eisenberg is definitely should not be qualified as an expert. Like I said, we've seen too many cases of her being incompetent and testifying in trials. It's documented now. God, I'm hungry. I need food. Oh, Angie, Taylor might be staying by you a little bit here and there, just so you know. I've been meaning to tell you that. I mean, I thought about it now. She asked me a while ago. I'm like, yeah, you can. When she's working in Rock County, she might need to stay by you once in a while. Just thought I'd let you know. Yeah. Okay, Travis. Talk to you later. Yeah, I mean, since she's actually a full-time job opened up, so she might not have to split time between the two counties. But if she does, you just conveniently happen to live in that county. Angie is not allowed to die ever because my daughter would probably be the one that would have to investigate her death. That would be so awful. So you're not allowed to die ever. That's what I figured. I didn't feel like I was stepping out of line too much to say, yeah, you can stay by Angie. When have I ever felt like that when inviting people to your house? It backfired on me on one time, so I haven't actually invited anyone to I haven't really done any of that lately in a long time, actually. Thanks, Travis. Even if you are on with Eric Hosey tomorrow night and I'm free, I don't know if I'll be on. I wouldn't plan on me watching many videos. If I'm not going to do them, I'm probably not going to watch them. Like I said, I'm probably not going to be doing much with the case at all. Something is filed, I'll do my best to keep up with that and let people know. I might do. I honestly don't know if I'll do a video on Kathleen's appellant brief because I don't think I need to be honest. It's all been stuff that she's argued before in her original motions. There's nothing new in there. So it would basically just me being like, oh, this is what she's saying. Hello, you're about this. This is what she's saying about that. And it's going to be big. So I don't know if I'm going to do a video because it's actually going to be very self-explanatory. If anything, I would just explain what's going to happen next. But that's pretty easy. State has 30 days to file their respondent brief. Well, that's one of the reasons to have one. I mean, that's one of the tiniest reasons to have one. I'm answering Falcon's question again, for those wondering. That is just one reason to have a hearing, is to this discrepancy. But the judge flat out said, I don't know which report Deputy Hawkins was using when he gave away these bones. If you think it matters, which she clearly did, then you need to find out. You need to ask the source. What report did you use? She didn't even know that was based on that report. She made the determination that Deputy Hawkins listed these as human, and he did that based on the original report. She doesn't actually know that. This was the assumption she was making. And she took it one step further and said, but since Eisenberg changed her testimony about those bones, he mistakenly referred to them as human when he shouldn't have. All assumptions. Because I don't remember hearing Hawkins testify that that's why he did it, or that's what he used, or that's why he said it. All assumptions. It's just, again, baffling to me. And again, as I said before, just inherently, how can you determine if somebody was demonstrating bad faith when you don't ask them why they did something? You don't ask them, like, did you do this? Why did you do that? What was your reasoning? I mean, that's how you answer that question. She just decided for herself that there was no bad faith, with absolutely no actual testimony about the actual issue. So there are a lot of reasons to have a hearing. And overall, if you want to sum it up, it's because a judge, it's not up to a judge to make conclusions or draw conclusions or make assumptions. It's not their job. They are not to provide their own facts. And that's what she did. And even in this decision, I said, she's absolutely right about the recusal thing. That's why I didn't even cover it, because I was like, I've covered this before. She's absolutely right in that part. So it's not like I'm just going to harp on this judge for everything she does, because every once in a while, she's actually right. Just like the last time when Kathleen made the substitution, I told right away what the judge was going to rule. And I'd say, and in this case, as much as I hate to say it, she's right. I've said when the state has made a good argument, it hasn't always been crap. Some have been horrible, but Kathleen's made bad arguments too. I try to just keep it honest either way, but this one is just so bad that it's really hard to see any good in it. But again, even then, I still said she's not wrong about the recusal. So still giving this judge credit, even though I think she's a moron. All right, I think I'm going to have to wrap it up. I mean, I'm a night owl, so, but like I said, I didn't fall asleep till 5:30 this morning, and I was up at 8, and I'm starving right now, and I'm still not feeling very good. So I need to eat something. Probably my blood sugar is like failing right now. I don't know how that affects my blood pressure either, because I cannot have my blood pressure crash again, because that's bad. And then try to get some sleep before I have to drive to Chicago tomorrow. What do you guys think? I'm totally missing this. It's because I truly believe she knows why she couldn't. Who are we talking about? See, you said that in reference to something I said, and I don't remember what I say. Eat more salt. Yep. That's the crazy thing for the people that are like, Angie will testify, I am a saltaholic. Like, I crave salt. I'm like a junkie when it comes to salt. Like, I actually feel like crap if I don't get salt. And yet I have such low blood pressure. I'm pretty sure I'd be dead if I didn't eat salt. And my sodium's not high either. It's crazy. So Angie says this, I have a lack of trace minerals. So I only have to go to O'Hare, so it's not like I have to go like into Chicago. O'Hare's not so bad. It's better than trying to go to Midway. See, now I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, which should I'm feeling bad, so I should probably be good, because I could go get like chips. I have some donuts sitting there, or I have grapes, I have nectarines, I have others. So I'm like, should I get fruit or should I get junk food? Junk food comforts me, but fruit is better for me. I think it's hilarious you just called her Judge Angie. You did not like it when people call her that. You grew up near Midway? I only flew out of there once because I said it's more in the city and it's a pain in the butt to get to. Thanks, Victoria. My daughter's friends are actually, some of her friends are going to surprise her. That's the plan anyway. They want to surprise her. They didn't want to pick her up, essentially, mainly because they're actually staying in Illinois overnight. But they want to surprise her, which I think is really sweet. But then they want to take us to dinner. And I just said that, well, it's really going to be up to Taylor. I'm sure she's going to be hungry, but I also don't know, like, is she going to be in a hurry to get home? She's going to be exhausted. Because she had a connecting flight through Poland, so I don't know how long the flight is. Last time, and it worked out well. She, just like before though, because she had just graduated before, she gets very excited when she talks about the stuff she's learning. She just hated everything else about it. And it's interesting, I said she got 2 certifications while she was there and learned a bunch of stuff I can't comprehend. I do need trace minerals. I know, but I don't know how to get just trace minerals because other things make me nauseous. I do have to take I have a vitamin D insufficiency, not a deficiency, but an insufficiency. So I do need vitamin D because that could be affecting my dizziness. The blood pressure can be playing a part in that. but I have to find out why it's one of those things. It's like a chicken and egg thing. I don't know if my blood pressure is crashing because I'm so lightheaded and dizzy, or if, where is she coming from? She's been in Cyprus all summer. She spent a few days in England, which is when she hung out with Sue. And then she went to Cyprus, and she was there the rest of the time since the beginning of June. Taylor is very excited about her work, her stuff she does. I envy that she's always known what she wanted to do, or at least since about middle school. When she went to college, she actually got her degree in what she went for, and she knew what she wanted to get her master's in, and she stayed with that. I mean, she's just been always known exactly what she wants to go into. And I envy that and she loves it. Like, she loves going to work, and she loves like doing what she does, even though she works with dead people. I mean, but she loves it. OBS is being freaky. So can you guys see me again and hear me? That's so funny. Because I'm seeing like a really blurry image, so I don't know what you guys are seeing. Or if I'm actually transmitting. I have no idea. Oh, that is so weird. I got a message saying OBS is disconnecting, and I was like, oh, I guess I'm leaving. Goodbye. But for no reason. Nothing's like, I'm not out of power or anything. I have no idea what happened. And then also it said OBS is reconnecting. And then here I was again. Oh, that's funny. I tried to say really quick, I guess I'm going, but I couldn't get it out fast enough. But I am going to go. So thank you everyone for staying with me, and for you just, even though I say that I can't do these anymore, it's always been kind of a nice way to take my mind off things. I wish I didn't have to get my blood pressure up with this stupid case stuff though. That's why I always did enjoy our Glow Ma'am all night videos, because we just sat there and talked about whatever. And it was always just kind of nice just to talk. And anybody that knows me knows that I fought like to the nail to never have to do videos. It took 3 years before I finally decided to do one. So who knows? Maybe one day I'll surprise you. I'll just be like, hey, I'm here. Who wants to chat? But okay, I'm going to, yeah, so see ya.